All right, guys, welcome to the Sheraton Hotel in Framingham. Thank you for coming. Well, I didn't do anything yet, so save that applause for when I get good, and I am going to be good today. So thank you guys seriously for attending. You guys know that have been following us for a while. We do at least one of these a month. The topic for today is deal or no deal. Deal or no deal is so important. I posted a bunch about kind of what I call making a Goldilocks offer. You guys all know the fable, not too hot, not too cold, kind of just right. And what we see and what I see kind of over and over again is that people make mistakes on buying investment properties either because they're offering too much or because they're offering too little. Most of the time when people think about whether or not they should buy a property or not buy a property, or the mistakes that you might make analyzing a property, do we think more about like overbidding and making a mistake, or more about underbidding? What do you guys think? We always think overbidding, that's the mistake you can make. But I want to tell you guys a really quick story, because that's only half of the problem that we have when we don't analyze deals the right way. The first deal that our company ever did was 13 Cameron Ave in Somerville, Mass. Most of you guys know the story, so I'm not going to retell it. But we went out on an appointment. It was somewhere around 2009, and we got a two-family in Teal Square in Somerville for $300,000. Okay? Ridiculously good price. It was the first deal we ever did. We made $115,000 on that deal. We felt like $1 million, and we felt like we were going to kill it that year. Over the next 6 months, no matter how many appointments we went on, we did not get one more property under contract. Does anybody know why? Or guess maybe why for 6 months we couldn't get even one more deal? We're offering too low. So the mistake we actually made, we kind of got lucky on that first deal. We made a really, really, really low offer on that first property, and we got a contract, which made us feel like we can make really, really, really low offers on every property and get a lot of contracts for a lot less than we probably should. So we went 6 months without doing our second deal, and part of the story that nobody knows is we got to a point where we're like, I don't even know if we can do this business anymore. Because while we made $115,000 on our first deal, we were spending $5,000 or $6,000 a month on marketing. And you start to go month 5, month 6, month 7 without deal number 2, and you start to question whether or not this is even a viable business. Maybe you got lucky on your first deal. So it's just as important to be super aggressive on the right types of deals and run as fast as you can away from the wrong types of deals. So I just gave an example of why in some cases we need to be more aggressive and the problems with being too conservative. But of course, I want to go the other way too. I got reached out to, this was on a Friday at 2 o'clock. I was with my son. He was at a hockey shooting practice in Arlington. And somebody sent me a message saying, hey, Tom, I just found this deal. I would be interested in potentially partnering on this deal with you. So he sent me the deal. I took a look at it. And within 10 seconds, I felt extremely, extremely bad for this person because they had already bought the property. And I knew just by looking in that property legitimately in under 30 seconds that they were going to lose money and that they were probably going to lose $50,000 to $100,000 on this deal. Now, I knew that simply because we've lost money on deals just like that. Now, most of you guys know we do 100 plus investment deals per year. We've done over 1,000 investment transactions per year. So what we're going to talk about today, whether we're going to say we're going to hit the deal button and buy it or the no deal button and not buy it, this isn't really, based on something that we read in a book. It's through doing 1,000 plus deals, right? And I have a slide here, and I'm skipping ahead, but I'm too excited right now, so I'm just going to keep going. And you guys will probably see some slides that are coming up. But my point there is that even though we've done 1,000+ deals, analyzing these deals is more than just a science, right? The science part of analyzing deals is what's in the spreadsheets. The problem is that doesn't tell the full story. And in fact, a lot of the stuff that's not in a spreadsheet are the most important things. And we're going to talk about those most important things today. And we're going to talk about analyzing 3 different types of deals. We're going to talk about how to analyze fix and flips. We're going to talk about how to analyze apartment deals. And we're going to talk about how to analyze small multifamily. Again, not necessarily 100% about to make sure you're not offering too much, but also making sure that you're not offering too little, that you're making the right offers, and more importantly than profit, to make sure that you're investing in safe, secure assets where your risk is extremely low. And one more kind of story before I go into the slides that happens to me on a regular basis is that somebody will send me a deal, they'll send me a spreadsheet calculation, and on the spreadsheet calculation, it'll show that it's a pretty profitable deal. And in the end, we tell them that we're not interested in the deal because of the risk profile of the deal. Meaning that because of the types of deals we've done in the past and the history that we have with certain types of properties, we know that the risk for loss is higher than another type of property. Does that make sense? So it's not just all about what's in the spreadsheet. It's also about saying, hey, I feel really confident that this is going to be a winning deal. Not every deal is going to be a winning deal. Do you guys think out of the 1,000+ deals that we've done that they've all been winners? No, right? But we do look back over the course of time and say, which ones were winners, which ones were losers, but more importantly, why? Why did they win? Why did they lose? And also we look at deals that we lost, right? Deals that we bid on that we didn't get. Did some of those become winners? Were they losers like we thought? Did we make any mistakes there? All right, so let me jump right into it. We talked about the fact that we're going to look at flips, small buy and holds, and apartments, which are really the, make up the vast majority of deals that people in this room are going to want to do. We talked about the fact that we want to help you guys prevent mistakes, be aggressive on good deals, and also show you how you can access more tools than just the 3 hours that we're here for today. I always say this at every single event that we have, whether it's a 2 or 3 day event or an hour or 2 hour event, no matter how long I'm up here talking or no matter how many people I bring in from my company, we can't cover everything that we know. It's literally impossible. So we always like to leave people with more information. How do you get more tools? How do you take more steps to invest? Because, newsflash, you're not going to get everything you need today. Not possible. Like, you guys who know me know I could just stand up here for 10 hours and keep going, and I still wouldn't be done. So that's what I hope to accomplish. We talked about what happens if you bid too much, what happens if you don't bid enough. So I do want to start, the sequence we're going to go in. First, we're going to talk about analyzing fix and flips, right? How to determine a deal or not a deal on a fix and flip. Then we're going to do apartments. Then we're going to do small multifamily. So let's just jump into fix and flips really quick. Who here is interested in fixing and flipping a home, or who fixes and flips homes? All right, so the majority of the room, but I do want to say something really quick to the people who didn't raise their hand. When we first started investing, when I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad in 2003 and said, hey, I want to be an investor, I never thought I would fix and flip a home. What I found is that in growing a multifamily portfolio, I came across a lot of flip opportunities. Now, if you're in this room and you're a real estate agent, you're a real estate professional, you are going to come across a fix and flip opportunity once in a while. Is Henry here? Henry, really quick, right? You're an agent that joined the Inner Circle when? Less than 2 months ago. So what was it, 1 month ago that you brought us a single family in Quincy that we're going to be partnering on? Sure. And how did you come across that deal, if you don't mind sharing it? Crazy. Yeah. So my point here, right, is that Henry, let's just say I don't even know if we sent you the profit and loss on that or not, but most deals that we do that are fix and flips are like $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 profits. So Henry, just from being aware that there was a fix and flip opportunity, is going to get a profit split on that particular deal, right? So he doesn't. You don't really want to be a flipper, right? Like that's not. But that's not your primary goal, right? His primary goal is passive income. But you guys are going to come across fix and flip opportunities. And if you're in the inner circle like Henry is, you can take advantage of these types of deals just by being in the inner circle. We put up the money, we do the construction, and then we split the profits with you, okay? But so if you're not necessarily interested per se in flipping a bunch of houses, I don't blame you. I don't think it should be the primary objective for most people who want to invest. What do we want when we invest? Very simple. There's nobody in this room that doesn't want what I'm about to say. You're all here because you want $10, $20, $30, $40,000 a month coming in passively from the assets that you own. That's what everybody in this room wants. That's how you get financial freedom. But along the way, you may come across fix and flip opportunities without really even trying, like he was just getting continuing eds. Somebody said, I've got a property that needs a bunch of work, and now he's a partner on that deal. Okay, so having said that, we're not here to necessarily talk about that. We're here to talk about how do we even determine whether or not a fix and flip opportunity is a good deal. If you're in the inner circle like Henry, all that you need to do to actually determine that is send me a message and we figure that out. But if you want to learn how we do it, that's what we're going to talk about right now. Okay, so who here has ever heard of the formula 70% of ARV minus repairs gets me to the offer that I should be making? Okay, probably like 2/3 of the room. For those of you who haven't, that's pretty much I want to call it the gold standard, but I don't know that it's actually the gold standard. It's more like that's the most common formula that people use. So let's just run the math really quick, and it's up there on the screen just so that everybody is following along really quickly. Let's say that we believe that the after repair value, or what the property will be worth when we sell it on the MLS after we've done the work, is $100,000. We use the formula 70% times ARV to get us to $70,000. And let's just say on that deal, it's a $30,000 repair. We subtract $30,000 to get what we call our max allowable offer of $40,000. If you're using this formula, what this basically is telling you is that I need to pay $40,000 or less in order for this to be a viable fix and flip opportunity. And like I said, this is the formula that if you go and you read a fix and flip book or you go on a webinar, you're most likely going to see. Most of you have heard about it. For those of you who haven't, just try to follow along as best you can, because what I'm going to talk about next is why I don't necessarily love this formula, and why, again, determining whether something's a deal or no deal is a little bit of an art, not just a science. Now, this formula here has a lot of validity to it. I'm not knocking this formula, but it's basically step one of what we look at to determine whether or not we even have a deal. So I'll poke some holes in this 70% of ARV minus repairs formula to kind of show you guys why I don't love it. And of course, more importantly, how we should be calculating values. Colleen, there's a chair right here. I don't know if you want to sit this close to me, but you kind of have no choice right now.
Thank you.
So now, when we look at this formula, right, the 70% of ARV minus repairs, one of the reasons why it's flawed is that because it doesn't take into consideration how big the ARV number is. So if we look at this formula, and as we know in the greater Boston area, I don't know if I can think of a property where the ARV, the after repair value, would only be $100,000. But let's just say it was. When we look at this formula and we get to this $40,000 offer, just by ballparking this, what would you guys guess that this profit on this deal would be if we bought it for $40,000? Somebody said 15,000. Sounds about right. So is there anybody in this room that we'd be super excited to spend 6 months doing a fix and flip and putting your money up to make $15,000? right? So we can see when the ARV number is really low, it doesn't really help us, right? We're going to make a mistake if we just follow this formula. Now, the more common mistake is actually on the big number. What happens if the ARV was 10 times, which is actually a more likely thing in our market? Let's say the ARV is $1 million, which, sad to say, that's a lot of houses in this area now. But let's just say it's $1 million, and we take that times 70% to get to 700,000. And let's say there's a $30,000 repair again, right? Just probably impossible, but let's just do that. We have a $670 purchase price. So we're going into a seller's living room. The Zestimate's probably $1 million, or at least $950, or maybe even over $1 million. And we're going in with a $670 offer. Does anybody in this room think that they're likely to get that offer accepted? You're literally walking into a house with a person thinking, I don't care what the condition of the house is. That person thinks their house is worth about $1 million, maybe more. And you're coming in with a $670 offer. So we can see at both ends of the spectrum that this doesn't really make a lot of sense, right? So it doesn't take into consideration one of the most important things when it comes to a fix and flip, which is actually profit. Sounds kind of crazy, but that formula does not take into consideration what your actual profit should be. So when you're fixing and flipping a house, you need to have some sort of minimum profit that you're looking for, right? That number can be whatever it is for anybody in this room, but I would caution everybody in this room for that number not to be super low, not because I care whether or not you only make 10 or 15,000, but that can swing the other way really quickly, right? So if you're off by 2 or 3% on your ARV and your reno goes over time, maybe it goes a little over budget, a $15,000 or a $20,000 fix and flip profit can become -20 or -30 really quick. So you can use any kind of number that you want. For us, if the property is not making $35,000 to $50,000, we're probably not doing it. But I do have a caveat there, which is when we look at deals, we like to know how much of a guarantee is it for me to make that profit. Believe it or not, depending on how much experience you have, you can answer that question, right? What are the odds that my ARV is right? What are the odds my budget's going to be accurate? What are the odds I'm going to go over time? Things like that. So for anybody who's in the inner circle, we've created this profit calculator, and actually this calculator was created for me by my partner Bill because I kept sending him stuff that didn't make sense. Okay, so he made this kind of dummy-proof spreadsheet that allows you to put in the purchase price, the projected sale price, the renovation, the taxes, and for you to spit out kind of what the profit number is, okay? If you're in the inner circle and you want access to this, just send me a message on Facebook and I will send it to you. Now, why else is the 70% of ARV minus repairs formula flawed, and how does our spreadsheet fix that? Now, again, keep in mind that we don't use just one thing when we're analyzing a fix and flip. We do use 70% of ARV minus repairs, but we also use this too. So one thing that 70% of ARV minus repairs doesn't take into consideration, which is hugely important and is going to sound really obvious to everybody in this room, but that I've made mistakes on, is the timeline of the project. So before I even talk about how to analyze that, I just want to say an economic thing right now that's not really related to this topic, which is that we are in a very strange market right now. Who agrees with that? All right. When we're in a strange market, we don't 100% know where things are going to go. My recommendation to you is that if you're going to take down a fix and flip on your own, only take down a fix and flip that can be done in 90 days or less. Anything over 90 days right now for a flip makes me nervous because of the interest rate risk, because of the economy risk, the recession risk. I mean, we just had, over the weekend, we had Russia almost have a civil war. Like there's crazy stuff going on right now. But I feel really confident, like if I'm fixing and flipping in the same market, meaning 90 days or less, like I feel pretty good about what my ARV is going to be. So that's unrelated to this, but I just wanted to mention that because that's very important. So there's a big difference, right, in our profit. And when we look at the calculator that Bill created for us, there's a big difference in the profit, whether the project's going to be 4 months or 12 months. Huge difference, right? And I know this is very obvious, but I think sometimes it can get overlooked. When people look at a property, they get excited. They think, wow, I can make this property beautiful. Great. How long is it going to take you? 12 months? Well, you better make sure you've got the right interest in there. You're going to pay more in taxes. You're going to pay more in insurance. You're going to have other problems that are going to pop up. Right, Jim? Always problems popping up with Jim, right? So we'll introduce you guys to Jim later. Jim manages all of our projects. And honestly, he all of his budgets are higher than I want. If we're going to be honest. I could spend a half an hour right now going on that. But yeah, so if you guys look at these numbers, right? Same deal. Like if you plug this into 70% of ARV minus repairs, it's not factoring in the timeline. If it's a 4-month timeline, it's a $41,000 profit. Not great, but probably acceptable. You plug it into 12 months, now you're at 18,000. To me, 18,000 now starts to get into like, this could lose money. And I don't want to get into, this might lose money part. So I hope that none of you have ever heard the phrase pop potential before, because I made it up. And if anyone ever used it before, it's just that they're copying me. Mm-hmm. So pop potential to me on a flip, on an ARV, what does that actually mean? Pop potential to me means like, what's the potential that we may hit a home run by getting the property to sell for a lot over ARV, even though there's no ARV comp to show it. I didn't do a great job of explaining that. So I put these two properties up here just to show you guys. These are real life flips that we did in the last 6 months so that I can explain it to you. 199 Howard Street in Lawrence, Mass. We comp that property. I comp that property out for $550. It's a 2-family in Lawrence. When I ran the comps on that property, there was nothing in a quarter to a third of a mile radius going back a year that sold for over $550. But I felt good I was going to get the $550. Now, if you guys see, can anybody see what it sold for? $680. So it sold for $130,000 over asking. Okay? Now look at the property on the right. Same exact scenario on paper, right? I comped out this single family in Springfield, this 3-bed, 1-bath, 1,000 square foot house in Springfield. I comped it out. I think I actually comped it out for $250, but I listed it for $239 to have it be a little bit lower. And do you guys see what it sold for? $250. So when I say pop potential, if you were to say to me, before we put these properties on the market, one of them is going to sell for $100 over asking. Is it safe to say that like most of us probably could have predicted that it would have been the Lawrence 2-family that would have sold for over $100 over rather than the Springfield single family? I don't necessarily expect you all to know that. You may not know Springfield, you may not know Lawrence, but I can tell you this, when we're analyzing a deal, we absolutely look to say, what are the odds that this could go $10, $20, $30, $40,000 over? There are certain types of properties, there are certain locations where that's more likely than not. That will not show up in the science of finding that comp, will it? No. So that's the art part, right? That's the art part of saying, yeah, you know, the last 3 properties, the last 3 multifamilies that we put on the market in Lawrence went for an average of 40 over. There's pretty good odds that it might go over. Now, we don't buy it based on that, but we say, maybe it's a little bit tighter of a deal. Maybe on paper, we're only projected to make 40, but in reality, like on this one, I think we made 150. So pop potential matters a lot. The other reason why pop potential matters is on that single family in Springfield. If you guys had to kind of guess, you think we got like a ton of offers or just a few? Who thinks we got a ton? Who thinks we got a few? Yeah, so most of you guys are on the right track. Like, it's not a huge market, right? So a small single family in Springfield, you're not going to get 15 or 20 offers. You're not going to get people fighting over that property. As compared to the 2-family in Lawrence, you are going to get people to fight for that property. Again, this stuff definitely doesn't show up in 70% of ARV minus repairs. And it's, again, stuff that you kind of can understand the more deals that you do. If you guys are partnered with us on these deals, you automatically get this analysis. If you're not, for whatever reason, like, just take as many notes as you can, and hopefully a lot of this stuff will stick. So I talked about this being an art and a science. The other thing 70% of ARV minus repairs doesn't take into consideration, and I just want to say, like, for anybody that thought that this was going to be like us opening up a spreadsheet, walking through like a spreadsheet, like, that is not the important part. The important part here, I'm going to go on the basis that I could send anybody our profit calculator and you could punch in numbers. These are all the things that go above and beyond that are things that you wouldn't necessarily see on the surface. So I put up here deal killers, but these aren't necessarily things that would make us like kill a deal, but they are things that would kill a deal, all things being equal. Meaning that if you show me a property that might make $40,000 or $50,000, but then it has super low ceilings, that would probably kill the deal for me. So if you have a property that has super low ceilings, as an example, you may need it for 60 cents on the dollar or 65 cents on the dollar. Does that make sense? Yeah.
What would you say is that super low ceiling? Is that curiosity? Or less, or what's super low to you?
So I think super low ceilings, you see it, you know it when you see it. Yeah. And it's obvious. Now, Justine, if you can touch the ceiling, there's a problem. Exactly. Okay, it's a big problem.
I've been to that type of property that's after renovation.
Yeah.
It's a completely killer.
Right? The people walk in and they walk out. Now, if you can touch the ceilings, I may be like, yeah, well, how high do you have to reach up, right? But I don't know, Jim, what would you say the footage would be if you had to guess? Okay.
Under 6 feet.
Yeah. Yeah, obvious. Definitely. And I'm not talking about the difference between like, cathedral ceilings and like normal ceilings. I'm talking about like you walk in and you go, a tall person may literally have an issue in the house. And there are a lot of houses like that, and you have to be careful. And again, why is that tricky? It's tricky because when you run the comps, the comp property probably doesn't have those super low ceilings. You walk in, you have to account for it. Septics. Septics are really tricky. First and foremost, you may know that a septic is going to cost $25,000 or $30,000 or $35,000, but you also have to put in the amount of timeline it's going to extend the project for, which is why that profit calculator is so important. But then you also have to factor in what type of septic. So septics can be tricky. We don't love septics. We will do septic deals, but septic deals on conservation, as an example, could be like a complete deal killer for us. Like we may not even want to do it because it could be, Jim, how long is the longest one taken for us? Yeah. So I love the groaning. It's awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, I know.
What about foundational problems and stuff like that?
So we'll get to everything here for a second. I just want to go in order. So main roads, same type of thing, right? The thing you have to be careful about is making sure if it's on a main road, you're comping against the property also on a main road. And you're not comping against the property on a side street. Again, a lot of this stuff, by the way, as you hear it, it might sound obvious. But where the problem kind of lies in June of 2023 is there not a lot of deals out there to be had. So what's happening a lot right now is people are overlooking certain things because they need a deal or they really, really want to do a deal. And then they're like, it's on a main road, it should be fine. like doing stuff like that, and then it comes to bite them in the end. Commercial style area properties. Another thing to keep in mind that's hugely important is you have to put yourself in a fix and flip in the buyer's shoes. When we're running a comp on a property, or when we go to look at a property that's in a commercial area, as an example, we may easily overlook that because we say it's a 3-bed, 1-bath ranch, normal type house. But then we also have to say, oh, would I live here? And if the answer to that is no, for whatever reason, we've got to figure out how to discount for that. Funky layouts. Funky layouts are kind of similar to low ceilings. You kind of know it when you see it. At the end of the day, again, it's the same premise. You walk into a house, would I buy this? Would somebody I know buy this? Homes built over 100 years ago, that encompasses a lot of homes around here. But I will say this, when you're comping a property or when you're analyzing a deal, you've got to compare kind of by time frame. And it's something, again, I see a lot of people making mistakes on. They comp an 1800s house against a 1950 house. They're very different for a lot of different reasons. So you just have to be careful. Again, it's not necessarily a deal killer, but I can tell you that probably a third of all the houses that we haven't done that well on were older houses, right? They don't sell as well, and the budgets tend to be much, much higher. Historical homes, very similar reason, except for worse. And other funky situations. So, you asked about foundations. I mean, we could keep going down the list of like a million different caveats here. At the end of the day, like I said, this is not meaning that we will actually not do a deal, right? If you bring me a deal with a septic on a conservation and it can profit $250,000, I'm doing that deal. But I have to feel very confident about that deal. I can tell you that I'm absolutely not doing that deal for a $30,000 profit. I'm not gambling on that, right? Because I'm looking and saying, well, what's the risk profile of it? And again, we can go up and down and we can look and say, what's the risk profile of all these things? Okay, budgets and renovation. Again, 70% of ARV minus repairs. It's an art. It's somewhat subjective. We talked about doing the right comps, but what about the right budget? So again, at the end of July, we're going to have an event. We're going to have a 3-hour event at the end of July that's going to be all about construction. So there's going to be a lot more. This slide could probably be a 3-hour presentation in and of itself, but it's important to get the budget right, okay? If you're partner with us, if you're in the inner circle, we will literally go on the appointment with you, do the budget for you. You don't have to do that. If you're doing it on your own, you need to make sure it's correct, it's accurate. But then another variable to keep in mind is you have to do the right level of renovation. When Jim was on our live stream last Tuesday, he talked about the biggest mistake that people make when renovating homes. What do you guys think it was? Who said over renovating? So either you guys paid attention, you're just ahead of the curve. Either way, congratulations. Over renovating. And why do we over renovate? Well, because we're excited, right? We want to make the property perfect. But there's a reason Ford doesn't make $200,000 vehicles, right? They could, but no one will buy them. It's the same thing with houses, right? There's a price point for every type of property in every town. And if you renovate over that level, you're not getting that money, right? So we're in what? Framingham, right? And I don't know what the price point is in Framingham, but at some price point in Framingham, maybe it's like $1 million. I don't care how nice the house is. They go, well, for $1.2 million, I can live in Wellesley, or for $1.2 million, I can live in this other town, right? So there's a price cap on every town for every style of home, and you're almost always better off under renovating if you have a choice. You're almost better under renovating than over renovating. If you under renovate, you may get away with it, or you might get a little bit lower of a sales price. If you over renovate, it's almost impossible to get that money back. So Jim spends a lot of time when he goes out to the properties to make sure that they're scoped properly, that the budgets are accurate. But having said that, we have a stat that we measure every single week. We're still off on 10 or 20% of every project that we do. Not by a lot, by a few $1,000s here and there, plus or minus. But even us, where we've done over 1,000 of these deals, we're still going to have some variation there. So it's definitely challenging. All right, so we've covered a lot. We've gone over a lot on fixing and flipping so far. And I'm definitely not trying to say this to scare anybody. I'm speaking from experience on the projects that we've done and the stuff that we run into, right? So my recommendation for anybody in this room who is thinking about doing their first or their second deal, I would 100% figure out a way to partner with us as kind of a learning tool in order to do this and to make limited mistakes, right? So I talk about this all the time when it comes to doing deals. Like, doing a couple of bad deals can completely knock you out of the business. When you're doing your first deal or two or three, you're probably not going to hit a home run anyways, no matter what you do. You just want to make sure that you're making the safe, the secure investment so that you can learn and continue on, okay? So the other variable that's definitely an art, and I don't care who you are, you're not going to get this right, which is the ARV comp. 100% of the properties that I comp out are wrong. 100%. When I look and I say, I think he's going to sell for 250, sells for 248 or 251 or 260 or 230, you're always going to be wrong unless, you just get very lucky and you hit the nail on the head. But that's maybe 1 out of 100 properties. It's just about how accurate you can be. You want to be as accurate as you possibly can, plus or minus a small percentage, but you want to be as close as you can to the needle. So I want to talk about comping properties and some of the things to kind of think about when you are trying to figure out the ARV, okay? So how far back do we go in time? This literally depends on when we're talking. So in general, I like to go back, like in an ideal world, 6 months would be the appropriate time frame, right? But there have been time frames during different periods of time where I've gone 12 or 18 months back. As an example, right now, I would not go 12 months back. Does anybody know why? 12 months ago was hot. What happened?
Landscape last year.
What was different?
The interest rates, how people are buying, the inventory.
So 12 months ago, almost to the day, literally, interest rates spiked from like 5 to 7%. And anybody that's in the business knows, like, the market really froze around here. Like, there was a real standstill here from, I can't quote the months, but basically sometime around June until towards the end of 2022. Properties were selling for a good amount less than what the ARV was. And buyers in general were just like, they didn't know what to do. Like, are rates going to really be at 7? Are they going to go back down? It took a while for that to stabilize. And I'm only saying this, that's what happened in the last 12 months. But prior to that, we had kind of like a good run where properties prices were going up every single year. So I felt really comfortable going back 12 months, 18 months, 24 months if I needed to in a conservative basis. But I wouldn't do that right now. So how far you go back in time depends on the market conditions. As of today, I would call like 6 months, but that could change, right? And that's another benefit of being in the inner circle is like when we make a change, you all know about the change. How far should the radius be? This is 100% a art thing and not a science thing, right? I can tell you this as an example. If you're going to comp out a condo in like an East Boston, a Somerville, an area like that, you need like a 1/10 of a mile radius, like almost no radius whatsoever. But if you head out here to Framingham, you might be looking at a 1/2 mile. You might be looking at a 1/4 mile. If you go more rural, you might be going at a mile potentially. What style of homes are acceptable? I actually created a handbook because I have somebody at our office that all they do full time is analyze these properties for us. And one of the things that's in that handbook is giving her insight as to what houses you compare to others. So for better or worse, one challenging thing about where we live in New England is when you drive down the street, there's a Cape, there's a Ridge, there's a Colonial, like everything under the sun, right? There's a house from 1980. There's a house from 1880. That's just how it is. Like we weren't developed like the South, like Florida, where it's just like tracts of homes that are all exactly the same. That can create opportunity, but it can also create difficulty in understanding this stuff. So we have to know what styles of homes are acceptable. So I have kind of an apples to apples comparison to say, well, a similar style raised ranch might compare okay to a Cape that has a dormered, back type of thing. Then we have to look at what the street scene looks like. And I'm giving you guys a lot. I'm trying to give you guys as much as I can in the shortest amount of time possible. The street that a property's on is the most important thing that you can look at. The hard part is that most of the time there is not a comp on that same street that sold within the last 6 months. If there is, that kind of overrides everything. But you've got to always look at the street that the property is on, because the street that the property is on is going to tell you more than any other comp that you can find. So this is the handbook that we created. For those people who are in the inner circle now that want the handbook, again, send me a message on Facebook. I'll send it to you. There's a lot in this handbook. Like it's probably 80 pages. It basically covers everything you can think of when it comes to analyzing properties. There's more information than most people need. If you're in the inner circle, you can get access to this, but also if you're in the inner circle, you kind of almost in a way don't need it, because again, we will do this for you. But if you kind of want to geek out on this stuff, this is the deal analysis process that Kathleen at our office follows. There's a lot to it, but Lord, I've done it and written it out so she can kind of follow a fairly simple blueprint to get to what our offer is going to be and to determine how safe a deal might be. So another thing that we do that I want to run through real quick is for every appointment that we go on, we create what we call an investor CMA. Now, you all probably know what a retail CMA is. An investor CMA, the whole purpose of it isn't to determine what the retail value of the house is, but to determine what our offer is. So for every person that's in the inner circle, every appointment that you go on, you get one of these. And again, like I said, we'll analyze these deals for you. This was 199 Howard in Lawrence, the property that we talked about. And it shows all of the data here and how we use it, right? We look at public record, we look at the assessed value, we look at beds, we look at baths and all that stuff. We always run an ARV comp, right? Again, I'm showing you guys what we had for the ARV comp on this property that sold for $680,000. This was the right ARV comp. This was the right two-family comp. But again, Lawrence had pop potential and it sold way over. And this is part of our CMA, right? It has a lot of other stuff. It has the street scene. It has the Zillow value. It has a couple other analytics in there. And they're usually between 10 to 30 page reports on that particular property so that when you go on an appointment, you know what to offer. All right. So any questions before I jump into the next 10 minutes here? No, we covered a lot so far. And keep in mind, we're going to be doing the apartments next. Yeah.
Quick question on you said the agent CMA, the investor CMA, how do we get that?
Yep.
If you're part.
Yep. If you're part of the inner circle, all that you have to do is reach out to me.
Yeah.
Hey, this is an address of a house that I'm going on an appointment for. So these aren't like, we don't do these are for when you have an appointment. If you have an appointment to meet with a seller to make an offer, we will do this for you. Obviously, these take time, effort, and energy. They're not just like for instructional purposes. Hey, like I just want to see what the offer would be if I don't have an appointment. But if you have an appointment, we run over 100 of these a week. We're happy to ratchet that up and ratchet that down if we need to. But it does take us a good probably half an hour, and I review all of them to make sure that they're accurate. So if you have a face-to-face seller appointment, not only will we run this for you if you're in the inner circle, we'll actually go on the appointment with you. If we get the deal and you want to partner with us, we'll put up the money and do the construction. Which kind of leads me into our next part, and I want to cover this in about 5 minutes, primarily because I want to make sure we give you guys as much value as possible. But I do also want to make sure that you guys all know about the Inner Circle program. It's, for lack of a better word, or lack of a better phrase, this is how we pay the bills. This is how we're able to have free events. This is how we're able to provide so much value. This is how I'm able to do the live streams, how I'm able to do the podcasts, how we're able to fund all this stuff. But of course, being in the inner circle, it shouldn't just be a win for me. It should actually be more of a win for you. And I'm going to explain to you why that would be if you are interested in investing in real estate. So did everyone get one of these inner circle sheets? They're on every table?
Yes.
All right. If you don't know what they are, this is what they are. This is what they look like, okay? So on the front of this, it covers everything that you get for being in the inner circle. I'm a little biased. You guys can see point number 1, 24/7, 365 access to me. I believe arrogantly that that is the most important benefit of this product. When I say 24/7, 365, I mean it. People reach out to me 7 days a week. I have no issue with that. It's through Facebook Messenger and email. If you send me a message or shoot me an email, you're going to get a response same day, and you're probably going to get a response within an hour or two. Anybody here who's in the inner circle, I'm sure can attest to that. I'm addicted to my phone. I'm just on it all the time. I don't care. Like, my wife gets mad at me, but it's what I like to do. So could have worse vices, right, than being addicted to being on my phone, but I am. I do like to help people when it comes to growing their investment business. And this inner circle, it's not like a 6-month term. It's not a year term. It's a lifelong term. The reason for that is because I told you guys, like, why are you here? I don't have to ask you. I know. You are here because you want $10, $20, $30, $40,000 a month of passive income coming in every month. If I knew a way to get you there in 6 months, I would not be here. In fact, there is no way to get there in 6 months. That is something that takes a while, right? It takes blood, sweat, and tears. It takes a commitment, and it takes time. It doesn't take 50 years to get there, but it might take 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years to get there, depending on what your number is. So the reason why number 1 is lifetime is because in 6 months, you're still going to need help. So the second thing that you get for being in it is you get to partner with us on fix and flips. Even if you want to do the fix and flips yourself, think about this for a second. What happens if you get a lead in a city that's 90 minutes away and you don't have a construction crew there? Like, do you want to go renovate a house in the Berkshires right now? We do that. We renovate in Mass, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. Okay, we renovate in every state in New England. So even if you're flipping and you want to do most of the flips yourself, there's going to be a time where you get a deal that you're going to be able to get half of just for the fact that you have us, working with us. There's also going to be a point that even if you want to fix and flip a lot of homes yourself, that you're not going to want to do an extra one, right? We don't know when that's going to be. You don't know when that's going to be. You might be dying to get your first deal right now, but then you might get your second deal a week after that. And I know maybe that doesn't sound realistic, but believe it or not, that stuff happens more than you think. Or you may just want to be somebody who doesn't want to put up their own money or actually do the construction. Really good benefits to doing that. That's what I did when I partnered with my partners in the beginning. They put up their money, they did the construction, and I found the deals. It worked out pretty good for me, right? So whether you really want to do a lot of fix or flips or not doesn't really matter. You will come across probably about one a year on average, or one every other year, or maybe two a year, even if you're not necessarily really trying. And again, if you're splitting a $50,000 profit or a $60,000 profit, those add up, right? And even if you're not interested in flipping, you do one or two of those a year, that's your down payment for your next multifamily. All right, there's a lot of other benefits here. I'm going to cover the ones I think that are important quickly. Monthly coaching sessions. So we have a meeting once a month to kind of cover whatever you guys need help with. I do a lot of training. The coaching session that we do doesn't have an agenda. So I don't come on to teach. I come on to see what people need help with and then help them with whatever they need help with. On the job training. So we talked about if you get an appointment with a seller who wants to sell a house, we'll go out there with you. Calvin, you're here. You knew I was going to loop you in today, didn't you? Yeah. You know, Calvin's a great kid. How old are you, Calvin? 24. Love Calvin. So Calvin works for us in the construction part of our business. He's super interested in investing. Probably sends me a message once a week. Few good questions, right? And we talk, and I love talking to Calvin because I love when people are young and hungry, because as somebody who's going to be 41 next month, you know, it reminds me of my younger self, right? To have somebody that's super ambitious and wants to, you know, be successful. So Calvin, even though he asked me every question under the sun, decides that he's going to do a mailer without talking to me, which was cool. Like, I'm glad you did it, right? And he decides he's going to go on the appointment without telling me. And then he reaches out to me, single family in New Hampshire, and he says, hey, like, I think I screwed this up. I go, oh, okay. Like, the last thing in the world I'm thinking about is he would be on a face-to-face seller appointment with somebody in New Hampshire. But long story short, all kidding aside, he went on the appointment. Calvin's not in sales. He's in the construction part of our business. And seller, to put it like in no other terms, completely lied to him. And Calvin thought he lost the deal. We came out there. We sent Jared from our team out there. Same day. Was it same day and got the contract signed? Yeah. Same day, got the contract signed, and now we're going to be partnering with Calvin on a deal. So first of all, give Calvin a round of applause for doing a deal. What we haven't told Calvin yet is he's going to be responsible for a ridiculously low, unrealistic budget. But we'll talk about that later. But the reason I'm saying this and why this stuff is so important is everybody thinks that they can do this on their own. Everybody thinks, oh, I can come to a 2-hour event. I can listen to one webinar. And then you get out in the wild and things don't. Did that appointment go like you thought? Not even close, right? And you get out in the wild and you realize things are a little bit different than on a webinar or on a podcast or whatever. So the point I want to illustrate is, like, Calvin's been with us for 2 or 3 years, probably listens to more podcasts than anybody, and had a challenge getting that deal closed. We went out there, closed it for him. Now we're going to do that deal with him. And that should be a good profit deal. Passive income deals, any deal that we get that people can invest in, we put it out to our inner circle first. On the job training we talked about, we'll go on the appointment with you. We will run the analysis for you. We will scope the project for you. Access to all of our content, free admission to all events. And there's really a lot more to it, but I'm going to kind of leave it there because I just want to make sure we're covering all the content for today. What I will say about the inner circle kind of in general is that it's a shortcut to the amount of time it'll take you to achieve the objective that I know that you have. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25,000, $30,000 a month, whatever that is of passive income, when you work with us, that timeline will get cut. Now, I can't make any projections as to like, oh, it's 51%, less time, or 20% less time, or 90% less time, but it's going to be a lot less time. Maybe if it takes you 10 years on your own, it'll take you 4 or 5 years with us. But more importantly than that is that you're going to avoid making mistakes, right? When you make a mistake, it can knock you out of the business, right? So you're going to make less mistakes by working with us. So there are 3 really easy ways to get into the inner circle. And I made this so that anybody can get in. Anybody in this room can join the inner circle. You can join today. I used to have a coaching program that was very similar. Actually, to be frank, it wasn't even as good as this. And we used to charge $60,000 for it. Okay. And, we would get, 5 or 6 people in a room every time to sign up. And it was great. Like I loved it. I like helping people. We had a good amount of people that signed up for that program. What I didn't like about that program, though, is that it limited the amount of people who could get in. So I didn't want to do that. So I changed it a couple years back. So there's 3 easy ways to get in. 3 ways that if you're like serious about investing in real estate, anybody in this room can do. The first, and the way that's a guarantee that anybody in this room can get in, is simply by joining our brokerage. Okay? I'm not going to talk about the benefits of our brokerage. We have 360 agents. Probably 300 of them joined before we created the inner circle. So 300 people joined on the basis of it being a good brokerage as a standalone entity, but we've now added on and bolted on the inner circle component. So anybody can switch brokerages, right? And I've been building a brokerage for 7 or 8 years, and I've heard every single reason why somebody can't switch brokerages. And I'm just going to say this related to that. All I'm going to say related to that is you all have to think about one thing, which is what's more important. Is it the retail side of your business or in the investing side of your business? I have a saying that I say over and over again on the podcast, right? Being an agent will make you a living. Being an investor will make you wealthy. Sales will make you a living. Investing will make you wealthy. It's a fact, right? So you have to really think, what is the most important priority? If it is retail sales, I can live with you giving me a reason you can't join. But if you're serious about investing in real estate and you make a decision based on the retail side of your business, you're making a mistake, okay? Second way you can join, because I know there are people here that own their own brokerage. The broker's their best friend. They're married to the broker. Okay, there's this fight, right? Kind of tough, but So there's like this 5% of people who can't switch brokerages that would give me a reason that I would consider acceptable. Like there was somebody who told me I'm making 60 grand in residuals somehow. I'm like, cool. Well, that's probably a reason not to switch. So they joined by the second way, which is to pay a flat $15,000 fee. Fees one time, you get all the benefits of being in the inner circle. Partnering with us on some fix and flips should pay for it in and of itself. I don't love taking the $15,000. I'd rather somebody join the brokerage, frankly. But if somebody says, I can't join the brokerage, but I really want to join the inner circle, we'll work it out. I'm willing to work out a couple of payments if that's an issue for people too. Again, on the principle that we want to get more people in the inner circle. And the third way to join is to invest $50,000 or more into one of our apartment deals. And we're going to talk a little bit in the next segment about what that looks like. If you have an IRA, if you have money sitting in the bank and you're thinking, I'd like to get a higher yield of return than I'm normally getting right now in a CD or a money market, that can be a way to join the inner circle, especially if you have an IRA, without having to do the other two. So before we break for 10 minutes and then go into the next segment, does anybody have any questions on the inner circle? Yes.
So I'm only licensed in Mass. If some chance I found a deal in New Hampshire and part of the queue, is that something I can still be part of even though I'm not registered in New Hampshire?
Yes. Your licensure doesn't have anything to do with where we can flip. You find a deal. So we will only flip in New England. So if you find one in Connecticut, but yes, we can do one in New Hampshire. For what?
We're going to have.
But we can still take a 5-minute break, right? Yeah. All right. Yeah. We're not ready for food, is what you're saying. Okay.
That's correct.
Yes. That's fine.
How long ago did you start the inner circle?
Probably 18 months ago, something like that. So when you say that, though, I just want to be clear about this. Like, I've had a coaching program since end of 2016. This variation of it is 18 months old. And again, the main reason for this variation is to get as many people in it as I can with a mutual benefit, right? And I have people that will, after this is over, there will be at least one person that will pitch me on something that has no benefit for me as a way to get into the inner circle. Believe me when I tell you, I have thought out every possible way that it can be a win-win, and they are here, right? So, any other questions before we take a 10-minute break? All right, cool. And any other questions on the first presentation? If not, we can put those to bed and give you guys 10 minutes to come back. All right, cool. What time is it right now? All right, we're doing pretty good. Let's call it 12:15. We'll start at 12:15 on the dot. All right, we'll see you guys in a few. Turn it down. I'm fine. You can do it. I don't know where it is.
Feels good.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. No, I don't need it. Yeah, you can change it. Hey, what's going on? Nice to see you.
Yeah, I haven't seen you for a while.
Yeah.
So I was a part of your coaching.
So that's gonna be a headache.
Yeah,
That's-
4 years ago, 5
Yeah,
years ago.
and I invested in a couple of deals.
Yep.
So would that qualify me?
100%. Whatever we have now, you can plug it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm on your mailing list and I get stuff, but I want to help Annie a bit here.
Good.
And I'm kind of getting organized to do that.
All right. Yeah, whatever you need. I mean, you know, like I said, I want to help people however I can. Yes. Yes. All right.
I want to.
Are you still in Merrimack Valley?
I am. I still live in Westford. I have a flip.
Nice.
And,
What town?
Berlin.
Oh, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long ways away, but it just. And, we're gonna do all right on it.
Good.
So I'm in with partners, and I'm a firm believer in partnerships. So
A little beep
that-
or like that.
I'll approach it that way.
Yeah.
Be a good partner.
Yeah, the exit market. I don't know anything about.
Oh, I know. It's a little bit different, but
Yeah.
we have 3 of us that are in the deal. I mean, I'm here, and the 2 other partners are the mechanics. So we're a lot. None of us have been in property.
Oh, nice.
But anyway, it's going to get sold, and I'm going to have a little bit more capital available. I want to move it to here. Yeah. So, cool. All right. I'll. You want me to still fill out the form, or?
No, just reach out to me. You have my contact, right? Yeah. Yeah. You can reach out to me. I'm just gonna run to the bathroom. Really
Yeah.
quick.
Okay. Good. All right.
like 857 number. I'm like, I don't know. I'm just obviously I can't answer it, but sometimes it's like,
Oh, I don't. We shifted, we're doing now. Probably not a great idea. We just want to try to test it. So we put boots on the ground, establish. It's so tough to get like back to him. It's like, you know, just joking, but it's like his estimate's like $1 million, and he's like 700,000. It's like it's tough. We come across a lot of like situations like this, but
where it doesn't make sense.
it's just no. Even the house like we cleaned up. That's happened to one wall on the side, on the circle side. So, but
What happened?
it was a bungalow. We buy these houses on
What was the ARV?
ARV was for what it was, a bungalow. So I don't remember exactly. It's somewhere around like 480. So it won't
Let's say 450
it
for
was
the
more
ARV.
450. I don't know about the top of my head. Whatever it was, another company went 315. He went 330. A realtor comes in. The realtor told me 400,000 for it. Easy. And this, like, dude, there's holes in the wall, the ceiling was coming down. It was exact. It wasn't looking
Yeah.
good. But my concern was another investor buying it, tear it down. Because across the street, they built brand new development. So that investor gets wind of it.
It kind of
Tear down the
poisons
numbers
the
work.
mind of the seller, like, oh, I can get this. It's like, well, bro, you don't they just want to, like, sometimes investors and agents do, they want deals so bad that they're willing to say whatever. So the seller's thrown off, well, this guy's gonna give you $2, you're only getting $1. So it just kind of,
I'm sorry, short though, and that's the wind of it. And it works if you tear it down and rebuild it. So I gotta be able to. Yeah.
I've had 2 appointments. I think the leading cause is like, I know something like that. You can buy this yourself kind of deal. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes it's like, that's why I have to do it. But it's just, I'm thinking she just
What do you think? One part of yours?
literally. That's like my max level. I mean, you go out
You could
that's the personality. But it's like you're but like, why not do it? I mean, it's just like, Spring out. That's why I've been noticing. No. Yeah. No, I just was passing by. She didn't have like super motivation. And she was like, all right, very interesting. The next thing you know, website. I got a Facebook. And I think that was like the start to like website. You're inspired. So it just, I don't know if that kind of turned it off.
Did you throw that number back by chance?
No, I didn't.
Because most of the people that want to offer,
What, it's a, it's not like super. Probably moving ready, but it definitely. Also, yeah, well, I'm gonna. No, not yet. I'm about to take 40 hours or so. You're not focused on trying to do one time by, you're trying to do one
that's good. Yeah, you gotta get those.
I missed the plus. He was talking about like the spreadsheet that we. It was seeing roughly what the time everything is, see that it's gonna be so and just know what they just said, budget and how long it's gonna take. That's the attribute. So like once you fix it. They just threw their minds like same thing. How long is it gonna take you to try to last 2021. He used the phrase confidential, phrase that means like how like you say when you're running around, make sure you my whole thing is about
All right, guys, we're back. So in order to keep us on time, as much as possible. I mean, it doesn't really matter to me. I don't have anything else going on after this, but I'm sure some of you guys do. We're just going to kind of continue on. So if you guys can kind of just direct your attention to me, I like as much attention as possible. Thank you. So we did hand out these inner circle sheets for everybody. Everybody now has one. So I know that there are some people that probably want to join or are at least considering joining. And what I would ask everybody to do that considering joining is just to fill one of these out and then make sure that they get to either Nicole or Christina at the desk outside there. By filling one of these out, it doesn't mean that anything is actually going to happen. It means that we're going to reach out to you about whether or not you should join the inner circle. It is perfectly okay to be interested and then not join. And in some cases, we talk to people and it just actually doesn't make sense for either party. I would say if you're like 50% or more interested in potentially joining the inner circle, just fill out the form, hand it to Christina or Nicole at the table, and that will then facilitate another conversation that's going to talk more about like what your investing objectives are and whether or not we can help you. We can help most people for the most part, but again, we want to make sure that we can provide value to you guys and that it makes sense. And then there's also a lot of times where people don't know which of the three options they should pick. So that's another thing that we oftentimes help people with. With all of that being said, we talked about the fact that we were gonna talk about analyzing 3 types of properties. You guys are gonna get to meet in this section our head of construction, Jim Cook, who raise your hand in the back. Jim is responsible for making sure that we fix and flip. We manage the construction of over 100 properties every single year, fix and flip, keep them on time, on budget. He's also responsible for making sure our apartments get built, and again, are on time and on budget. And he's going to come up here in just a few minutes and talk a little bit about the Hookset project that we have coming up. But I do want to just start out by kind of talking about the market, why we're doing apartments, and even tying in fixing and flipping a little bit. So this is my opinion, take it for what it's worth. I do think that fixing and flipping is always going to be good. If you can do a project in 90 days or less and you buy it for the right price, you're always going to be able to make money, especially in a market like ours where there's very little inventory. Even when the market's going down or there's hiccups in the market, if you can get the property at the right price and you can get in and get out quick, there's always a time to do a great fix and flip deal. In addition to the fact that if you're in the inner circle and you're partnering with us, even if you don't think it's a great time to fix and flip a house, you're not even putting your own capital up in order to do it. So for the most part, for everybody in this room, I wouldn't necessarily advocate that anyone, try to flip 100 homes a year, but I would at the minimum at least advocate that you guys start thinking about how you can find fix and flip deals. There are more fix and flip deals that come across your plate than you would think. Henry's a perfect example. He was out there getting a CE, getting CEs, and he bumped into another agent that had a deal. A lot of you are not going to be at our brokerage for whatever reason, or you've already co-broked with a lot of agents over the course of the past 5 or 10 years. Any of those agents might have a deal that you may be able to work on with us. Don't sleep on your sphere either. Like everybody in this is here in this room because you invest in real estate or want to invest in real estate. There's a saying, don't be a secret agent. Has anybody ever heard that saying? Right? Which is basically like we think in our head, we get a license and all 200 people that we know now know that we sell real estate, which is honestly I mean, think about that logically, right? Like how self-centered of a concept can that even be, right? So we're taught to understand, which is a fact, that nobody really cares about us, right? Nobody cares how we make money, what we do. Nobody's investigating what we're doing. Nobody's thinking about us on a daily basis. So we have to stay in front of people to remind them. If you guys look on my Facebook page, my own personal page, would you know that I'm an investor? Who here thinks that by looking at my page and reading the last 10 posts that you would know I'm an investor? Okay? If you look, I guarantee you'll know. I'm going to ask that question back to all of you. If I went down your Facebook page, the last 10 posts in the last 2 to 3 weeks, would somebody in your sphere know you're an investor? If the answer to that is no, you're mixing fix and flip, an apartment, and small multifamily opportunities because people in your SOI don't even know you invest in real estate. So that's one habit that anybody can change, right? Is letting other people know what you do. Has anybody here done a post about the fact that you're at this event? A few people, right? So if you do that, and I'm not saying you have to promote me, I'm saying in general, if you're at a fix and flip property, if you're analyzing a deal, if you're at a training, are you letting other people know that you invest in real estate? All right, so I talked about the fact that I do believe that fixing and flipping is always good, as long as you can get in and out of properties quick and you can get them for the right price. June 2023, I've done multiple presentations on this, but small multifamily, in my opinion, is very challenging right now. And the third presentation on the day is going to be how to analyze small multifamily. But before I even go into that, we're going to talk about apartments. I'm going to talk about why we've completely switched our business from owning small multifamily real estate to owning apartments. Why we believe in June of 2023, it's a more profitable, safer, and overall more passive and better investment. So I already mentioned this twice. Why are we here? Why did we start? Who here read Rich Dad Poor Dad? Cash Flow Quadrant, or some variation of that book? Probably everybody in this room. Everybody in this room got this idea in their head, which is a factual idea that a lot of people in America have achieved, which is you buy cash flowing assets, you get passive income, and you live a better lifestyle. That's what we're here for. So when we got that idea, when I read that book and got that idea in my head, the only thing I could think of is owning small multifamily real estate. So that's really what we did, right? In the meantime, as we're trying to find this passive income real estate, we're out there marketing. We're looking for sellers looking to sell their properties. And that's how we've done so many fix and flips, because of the marketing campaigns that we've done. We fixed and flipped over 1,000 homes. We built and managed a sizable small multifamily portfolio, built a 350 plus person brokerage. And what happened with us is that we decided to turn all of those green houses into red hotels. And I want to talk about why. So the project here that is almost complete, probably some of you, has anybody been in this building, been to some of our other events and been inside this project? This one is nearly complete at this point, but these are the types of projects that we're focused on now. And I'm going to talk about the reason, like how we would analyze, again, deal or no deal, why we feel that new construction apartments in general are deals, why we feel in general that small multifamily in general would hit the no deal button. So what we're doing is 20 to 100 unit newer construction or new construction buildings. So we made the switch, and these are some of the pain points. It's going to actually tie the next presentation together a little bit because they are, to me, combined, okay? So the first thing is dealing with kind of lower level contractors. This is definitely a challenge. I mean, I told you guys, Jim, who's in the back of the room, manages over 100 of these small projects for us per year. It's very challenging to find really good, skilled workers to do small multifamily, to do small repairs. It's a lot easier to do that when you're doing bigger projects, right? Like, Jim, what is the Hookset budget? Roughly. Yeah. So you just call it 20 million. If you think about this just as a logical thing, right? is it easier to get really top quality construction people for a $20 million budget or like a $20,000 renovation on a 3-family in Brockton? I mean, it is almost comical, right? Just think about that, right? Less repairs and hassle. New construction has less CapEx. Again, in the next section, we're going to talk about analyzing small multifamily. And I actually have an example in there of a 3-family in Lynn, 10 Adams Street, that we bought in 2012. What would you guys guess we paid in 2012? For a 3-family on 10 Adams Street in Lynn? What?
275.
150 on MLS, and I got a commission. Okay, so as I'm saying this, and as I'm saying new construction apartment deals to me are better because they have less CapEx. I'm not saying don't buy a 3-family in Lynn for $150,000. What I'm saying is if you're buying it today for $750,000, which is what it would cost, you have to be really careful because when you're running your numbers and you're not factoring in the CapEx on a 100-year-old building, it can be problematic. That CapEx, right? Things that can go wrong, big problems, big projects, doesn't happen as much on a new construction building. Less tenant problems. So again, this is going to be one that's not meant to be comical, but kind of might be a little bit. Like if you're a tenant, again, I said when we talk about flipping, you have to put yourself in the perspective of the buyer. Let's put yourself in perspective of the tenant. Which property are you going to pick, all things being equal? A 6-family in Lynn that's 100 years old, 2 bedrooms, or are you going to pick a new construction 50-unit building with a dog park, keyless entry, and all that good stuff, right? And again, not meant to be like comical at all or to say something that's very clearly obvious, but what a lot of people, myself included, didn't factor in when we were buying small multifamily is like, whatever you're offering as a product is going to attract a person that product's acceptable to. So again, I'm going to just think about this logically. If you have a beaten down 6-family in Lynn, cramped, bad layout, deferred maintenance, and a lot of other properties, who is the person that will accept those conditions? And do you want to be the landlord of that type of property? Less roofs to manage. So again, when we think about deal or no deal, I'm simply comparing small multifamily to bigger apartments. Do you want to have, if you're going to have 30 units, do you want to manage 10 3-families with 10 roofs or 1 with 1 roof? I know the question is obvious, but again, this is stuff that I didn't think about when we first started investing. But much more importantly than that, this is much more important. The greenhouses, they don't work anymore. Okay, they literally don't work with today's market and today's competition. Going back to that 3-family on 10 Adams Street in Lynn, when I bought that on the MLS for $150,000, most regular everyday buyers didn't want that property. When people have the choice, do they pick single families or multifamilies to live in general? Single families. At that time, you could buy a lot of single families in Lynn for $155,000, right? You could buy a nice house in Lynn for $155,000. You didn't need to buy that 3-family. Even though that would have been the better financial situation for most people, they didn't need to buy it. Today, when you're looking and buying small multifamily, you're competing mainly against FHA buyers. Why are you competing against them? Because they can't afford the single family. So they're actually making the sacrifice, not necessarily a financial thing, but like, hey, I can actually buy a home if I buy a multi. And that type of competition wasn't happening in 12 and 13 and 14. So red hotels, in my opinion, again, why we hit the deal button, why we believe they're an unfair advantage, is that they're ultimately more passive, okay? So when we were owning, I don't know the maximum amount of units that we had, but we had a lot of 3 to 6 unit buildings in and around greater Boston, like basically an hour radius in and around Boston. And when I read that book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and when you're all sitting here right now thinking about what do you want, you're thinking, I'm going to get a check in the mail every single month or multiple checks in the mail every single month. I'm going to have a property manager kind of taking care of most of the problems that come up. And the reality is for small multifamily, if you're buying in the wrong areas, that's almost impossible to do. I mean, Jim, we could probably tell horror stories like all day long. And I'm not talking about like minor things. I'm talking about like deaths. I'm talking about like bad stuff that a lot of times is accompanied with a small multifamily. And I'm not saying don't buy it, but you damn well better have margins if you're gonna deal with that. So again, what are we looking for? When we're thinking and we're reading that book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, we're thinking in our head, like, I want to make my life easier and have passive income. In reality, when you get up to 200 or 300 units with these small multifamilies, you have a bad job. Does everybody understand that? Because I don't want to go any further until like everybody's in agreement with that or at least understands that. If you have 200 to 300 small multifamily units in areas that cash flow, which are going to be the tougher areas in our market, that cannot be passive. Does anybody disagree with that? Like, you're getting calls every day for problems. And again, they're not like minor problems. They're like big problems where like the police is involved and it's like bigger than like something that's, just a minor inconvenience. That's reality. Compare that to apartments. Whether you invest passively in a deal with us or whether you own these, it is much more passive, right? And my partner, Bill, always says this, and it's really true, that you don't want to own assets where the person that's renting from you has nothing to lose. Okay? I'm going to say that again. It's very important, especially where we live in the state that we live in. When somebody has nothing to lose, they can make your life very problematic. And there is nothing that you can do about it, literally. Now, compare that again to the type of assets that we're building now. The people that we rent to now, their objective isn't to be a lifelong tenant. Their objective, this is a stopping point for them. Like, they're going to be there for a year or 2 years, and then what are they going to do? They're going to buy something, right? So it's a very different thing. And again, why we're saying no deal to almost every small multifamily, and why we're saying yes to the new construction apartment deals that make sense. And we're going to talk about what we look for that. So I did talk about joining the inner circle by being a capital partner. I'm going to talk about this at a very, very high level because I want you guys, again, to get the most important things today. But on these deals, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, where one of the biggest benefits to doing these 50 to 100 unit deals is that you don't have competition. Comparing it to that 3-family in Lynn or Framingham or any city you can think of, when that 3-family goes on the market, how many people do you think are potentially interested in that deal and can pull off that deal? A lot, right? Like, a lot of people can go out and buy a 3-family in Framingham for $700,000. A lot of people, right? And how much do they have to put down? 20 grand, 15 grand, 30 grand. And that's achievable for a lot of people. Why we bring in capital partners, and again, why this is a little bit of a double-edged sword for apartments, is on the deal that we're doing right now in Hooksett, we need $7 million. Okay? So how many people does that knock out? Almost everybody, right? And there are people, yes, there are groups that can do these, but the average everyday person can't do these deals. That's actually a good thing because only the best can do them. Only the people with resources can do them. And when you're a part of them, because there's less competition, you're getting a better return. So Jim, do you want to talk about a little bit about the project itself? So it's a 72-unit building. And again, keep in mind, we analyze a bunch of these deals, and this is a deal that we're doing that we said yes to. So we're going to talk about the reasons we said yes. And as we're going along, keep in mind that these are the types of things that you want to look for. And before I put Jim on the mic, I do want to hit on kind of just some of the high level stuff as to why we said deal to this one. Okay. So I talked about the number of units. For us right now, we're trying to do 50 plus units. What we found is that, yes, you can do a 6-unit building, you can do a 10-unit building. It's basically going to take about the same amount of time, effort, and energy. So you might as well kind of do a lot more units. This is in New Hampshire, okay? One of the reasons that we're trying to buy and hold in New Hampshire is because of the laws, okay? Is anybody familiar with the difference between like Massachusetts landlord tenant laws in New Hampshire? What was that?
Night and day.
What's the difference?
Massachusetts is more leaning towards tenants protections, and New Hampshire is landlord.
Yeah. I mean, long story short, like in New Hampshire, if somebody's not paying you, you can get them out in a relatively reasonable time. And in Massachusetts, that's just not true. Okay, right? Not even close to being. What would you say the average timeline is?
Could actually figure that out right now, but we just threw some. I think average right now is probably 5 months, give or take. We have some that have been in over a year in the eviction process right now.
Yeah, and so here's the thing again, why we're saying no deal to a bunch of small multifamilies. Are most small multifamilies being sold today occupied or vacant? Occupied. So when he says it's taking 5 months to get somebody out, this is again the stuff that like when you run a P&L and you go, oh, great, this property cash flows $1,000 a month. Well, did you factor in you've got 3 non-paying tenants? It's going to take you 5 months to get them out. And did you rerun those numbers? The answer most of the time is going to be no, which again is why we like to build something where we're putting the tenants in on day one, right? We're doing that stuff. So we do like New Hampshire, and we like it for the landlord-tenant laws, but there's another reason we like it as well. Ever since work from home has kind of started, there's been a migration pattern. And I actually did a post on this. John Burns, who runs a lot of data and analytics, did a study, and he found that he called it like Northern New England is one of the fastest growing markets in the country. And why it's fast growing is because if you think about it, logically, think about how much it costs to rent an apartment, say in like Somerville, Massachusetts now. Probably like $4,000 a month now, right? And if you can work from home and you don't need to be in Boston, why wouldn't you go to a Hooksett, New Hampshire and rent out a new construction unit for $2,500, $2,600, $2,700 when you don't need to be in Boston? And there's a lot of migration changes happening. Has anybody worked with a client who's gone more than 35 miles north of Boston in the last couple of years? So a good amount of people, and I have too. So I'm going to turn it over to Jim to kind of talk about like the deal itself, and then if you can interject too, like why you like the deal in general.
So again, Jim Cook, I think you gave me a little intro, but I've been doing this since like 01, 02 at different levels. Started in the multifamily world, buying and flipping 3 families. When that was actually in Lynn, I was paying like 109, 119, 156. And then I'd sell them for like 250. Holy cow, right? Same houses are now selling for $750 million bucks. But those problems that you mentioned, like literally gives me chills. I talk to Calvin about it sometimes. It's my God. It gives you chills.
What are some examples?
The basic stuff are all the mattresses that end up in the hallway all the time full of bed bugs. And then you get the whole place treated, costs you a fortune. You have to deal with all that. And then you come back next week and it's all mattresses again. We'll stop collecting mattresses. Just stop collecting them. Or a shooting. We had guys trying over an apartment and people on the first floor got in an argument and started shooting each other. So I had to get a new set of painters because they weren't coming back. They said, no, I'm done. But those are things that we have to deal with, being involved with property. So, because a lot of those people don't have anything to lose. I don't have much to lose. I'm trying to build their credit to start their life. So, but yeah, that's a kind of a snapshot. I did some of the commercial stuff for a handful of years, in a similar aspect to what we're building here, doing the storage and contractor bays, commercial uses, and now we've done quite a bit of large multi-unit over the last handful of years as well. So still doing the flips, anywhere from 100 to 150 or so flips a year, from acquisition to construction and back to the sales team. Calvin, who's over in the corner near the door, works with us. He helps out quite a bit, managing some of the projects on the flip side and making sure he holds us all the task, make sure we're doing what we need to do. From the Hooksett project, it's an exciting project. It's a good project. Part of what I love about it is the size, and we're building a community almost. I call it campus. So you come in off of the main road, which is in between two major highways. They call it the bypass, Londonderry Turnpike. And off of that, that's going to be a private way that's owned by us. On the left, as you come in, which I'll show you a little more in depth, but to give you a picture. When you come in on the left, you go up a slight incline, and all these commercial units are about 20 feet up above the road, so they're not in your face when you're driving in. There's 39 to 40 of those. Those are contractor bays that could be combined as one, but right now there's 39 slated and approved. Those are steel buildings on concrete foundations with heat, and a bathroom and a 300 square foot mezzanine for office or storage. Those will be built to suit. We upgraded the exterior a little bit to give it a little more curb appeal. Again, you produce a product for somebody that you want to bring in. So someone's going to be proud of their business to go in there. So, and from the roadside, we decided to upgrade that to appeal to the city a little more. The city has certain regulations, but we upgraded those to give a better facade. Then you'll continue on that private road. On the right-hand side there, you'll have three buildings of 24 units each. Pretty much identical buildings. First floors are a little different because of entranceways. And there's a courtyard, there's a small pond for walking trails. It's overall, the campus is 26 acres. And there's things like fire pits, pergolas with cornhole setups. So that'll be fun. The goal of the project says 2 years, max of 5 months. What does that mean? So 2 years of construction. We say max of 5, but it takes time. It took time to get this approved, a lot of time to get this approved. We have raw land on essentially a highway. So you have to get that approved, which is done. It's approved. Now we're just in a process right now of agreeing to striping in the street. Like that's where we are, but the project is approved to 5 years. So the 5 years is about a year and a half now of approval. Start construction, and then the refinance and the occupancy. So projected annual returns, 15 to 20%. I think anyone that looks at managing a business looks at 28% profits. When you look at a cap rate, you put that on any of these, your return 15 to 20 is a great deal. So do you want to do this part after, or we can go through? But I can breeze through if you want.
Well, I mean, they know me, so you can skip me.
Did you know Tom is never on social media, by the way? You mentioned it. I've never seen a post from him. I don't know.
I'm actually checking my messages right now.
This is the first time I've ever met Tom face to face. So then Bill, we can go over these a little more in detail maybe when these guys come in. Bill's partner, Tom's partner, owner of the business. He does a lot of the finance, reviews the legal, make sure we're closing properly, make sure we're reviewing deals, approving them. Bill lives in Linfield with his family and is Tom's original partner in the business. Me, I've kind of already went through my thing, been doing this for 20 plus years now. I live in Gloucester, Mass, 4 kids. I've been fortunate to be in this business for a long time. I was in the financial services world for a while and construction, which everyone always said, some of my best friends like, that doesn't even make sense. My passion was always construction, but I had to pay my bills. So in the beginning, it was a little bit of both. And for quite a while now. I've been in the development world 100%, and I'm fortunate to do what I really like and what I've always liked even as a kid. So Hooksett project, again, if anyone, 214 Londonderry Turnpike, anyone's familiar with the area, they know that road. It basically brings you from a main highway to a main highway where you have everything from Home Depots, McDonald's, all of that going down a main route, very heavily traveled, and 26 acres. You'll see where the red dot is. We have on those buildings that I mentioned that were the commercial buildings, right? 39 units. It's over 5 buildings. We did that strategically. One from a site cost perspective, so we didn't have to lower and blast 30 to 40 feet down. We tiered it, but it also gives some of these buildings have a handful of units, other has more, other have 10, and for a parking perspective. So if you have maybe a CrossFit's going to go in there, so from 4:30 in the morning till 8 in the morning, they take up a ton of parking. But maybe the next gymnastics place is only busy in the evenings or afternoons, whatever they may be. We strategically structured the layouts in 5 buildings. So the variances that we had to go through were extensive. We kind of went over some of that, but really the challenges on these, usually they're about a year to get these approvals. We're into probably, I haven't checked the calendar, probably about a year and a half now. We are approved. And now, like I said, now there's just, we're just unlining the street and doing a turn. And that is in July, and then we're ready to go. But what I've learned, even if you can get a partial permit, don't start one of these projects until you're 100%. Because some cities and towns will give you partial permits. And then you have to figure out the striping the street after, and they won't give you occupancy until you're done. Do it first, because if they give you a partial permit, in my experience, you're putting in sidewalks, you're putting in crosswalks, street lights, because you already started your project. Don't start your project until you get a complete permit. And if you can get a demo, you can get a partial. I wouldn't recommend it unless you are 100% confident that they're going to approve what you want on the road. They're going to start asking for a park and everything else. So just be careful there. We acquired this off market for about $2.5 million with some partial approvals. And before we close, we'll have 100%. So on that, the $2.5 million for 26 acres, it's easy math to figure out per acre. But the reason why we got it is a lender called us and said, hey, this guy's trying to do this, great guy. He might be in a little bit over his head, and asked if I knew anyone. So I'm calling you. I'd like you to meet with the seller and the buyer and see if you can work something out. So we had a 10-minute conversation with the buyer. I said, yep, let's meet in there, and we literally sat at a table, very casual, had a conversation. And the buyer, we met the seller and the buyer at the same time. And the buyer said, yep, this is your deal. I'm in over my head, but I wanted someone, because the lender said you guys were good, they could handle it. The buyer kind of vetted that out. They were comfortable. And then we decided to bring in the original buyer. And we didn't have to do that, and that's not like gloating or bragging, but it's the right thing to do. So the lender referred us in because I like to think we have a good reputation. We know what we're doing. And then the buyer was in kind of a tough spot. So instead of him losing a deposit, we brought him in as a partner. And he's going to, in time, not right now, but in time, he'll bring something to the table. He brought the deal, really, but he'll bring something to the table in time. And we made that agreement up front before we moved forward. And the seller really liked that. They're good guys, good people, good family. And they really liked that we presented that to the buyer.
But I think that is just, something to keep in mind, right? Like, we talked about partnering with us on fix and flips, and that's very easy. Right? We're going to analyze the deal. You're going to become a partner in the deal. But the last 2 apartment deals that we did, this Hooksett one and the one in Nashua, were both brought to us by somebody in the inner circle, and we are partnering with them on those big deals. Now, are you going to stumble across this type of deal like every day? No. Will you definitely stumble across a deal like this in your life? No. You may not. You will stumble across fix and flips, but you may stumble across something like this, and we may be able to work on something like this together too, again, if you're in the inner circle.
And to be clear, those two, that's fine, I didn't do that. Those two people that brought those to us, these deals were already under contract, ready to go, like with preliminary plans. It wasn't a dream. These were already at a point that they needed more capital and they needed to move fast. These don't move fast like a flip. You're not closing in 3 days. It's not happening. So, and any seller that is in that business and knows what they're doing understands that. So they didn't just bring, hey, I found 30 acres, what can we do with it? So they brought a P&S and they were ready to go with preliminary plans and some engineering. Where the holding company on this is Hooksett Real Estate Opportunity LLC, I think. Yeah. And so new construction on some conceptuals up here, some of them a little more updated now. But so we have the architecturals are now complete. I said conceptuals are. They're now complete because when we drafted this, like they're freshly complete. So they're all 2-bedroom units. So we have 3 24-unit buildings that are all 2-bedroom units. The first floors are almost identical in all 3 buildings, slightly different because some grade changes we had to do. But it's basically the same layout. Civil engineering is done, excluding that road. We have some line striping to do, and we have 1 catch basin with some 2 sewage pumps to figure out. But we're at that point that it's approved. It's just a fine tuning. They want us to move 2 catch basin covers. So we have that. Time frame, 2 years. We say 18 to 24 months, 100%. That's a doable time. The budget, I said 18 million plus the commercial side. We're at 27 million dollars to project closeout, which means ready for occupancy, sign off. So in your sign off on these, by the way, you're not just a building sign off, it's an occupancy. And Calvin knows all about that. He spends a lot of time in downtown Boston for our Boston projects, and it's quite a process. So that alone is almost a full-time job. So we have the style of the buildings. So on the residential, wood frame. Why don't you steel? Go price out steel. Let me know how that goes. So steel, for the heights we're doing, for the number of stories, we're wood framed. There's no parking underneath the slab on grade. So we have wood frame buildings with some aesthetics on the outside, some different mediums for the siding, add some depth. We have some stone going up at the entrance point to give it an attractive look. There is a tremendous amount of parking here. So we are on a main road. So let's think about that. The reality is most people, 1, maybe 2 cars per unit. We have almost 3 car per unit parking plus some overflow. That was somewhat of a requirement from the town to a degree, but we have extra. And think about if anyone has a holiday party or any guests, or maybe we're wrong, they all have 3 cars. Where are they going to park? There's nowhere to park on that main road. It's a highway. So we put it together that we have, I'll show you the site plan, but we have 3 large lots basically for the residential, one of which will probably never be used. It will be snow storage. Modern style units, smart units. So you have, Tom alluded to it earlier, keyless entry. We have, from our management perspective, we have automated shutoffs for electronic shutoffs. Like you can sit in there on your phone, shutting off water to unit 21 because there was an instant surge at 3 in the morning that shouldn't happen. That will be set to automatically shut that off because that is not normal use. We have, what else? In the smart rooms on like an Amazon room, it's a package room, but it's basically an Amazon room today, right? So on those Amazon rooms, we have, you walk in, so you'll take your key fob, or you put your code in actually with your phone. You'll go in and there'll be a laser that brings you to your package, and it'll walk you through, point to your package, you pick up your package. You're on camera that whole time. So it knows you had to buzz yourself into 2 rooms by the time you got to that package, and it knew it was you. Once it knows it's you, it buzz yourself in, you go to that camera. Things like that. There's a cost to that for us, of course, but I think everyone feels safer in this room already just hearing that. Those are the kind of steps we take. Surveillance all over the property, significant number of cameras for our safety and theirs. For also snow management, landscape management, we know from management perspective, when people mowed the lawn, if we're paying per time or for plowing, we know, no, you had one truck here all day, you didn't have two. And let me show you that. You know, from a management perspective, that helps. Proposed amenities, we just talked about that a little bit, but security, assigned parking. So we do assigned parking, and that's something when we get to occupancy, we put that in our pro forma, and that is maybe each unit gets one spot, maybe they get two. If they want a third spot, they're paying for it. Outdoor lounge areas. So cornhole. I think most people in here have at least heard of it or played it, right? It's fun. It's easy. It's low risk, but it gets people together. It creates community. So we have two cornhole areas. We have a pergola. We have gas fireplaces and gas grills that are all built in with stone seating and just a nice friendly area. Dog wash stations, which a dog wash station, I don't know what that is, but you basically it's a mini grooming room, and you bring the dog in, clean them up, and then bring them up to your unit. The win for us there is the common areas stay clean. The win for the tenant or the resident is that is an amenity. They don't have to bring a muddy dog into their house and clean them up. If you think about the amount of mud that will reduce coming into the building, and a lot of people are pet parents now, right? And they love that pet and they want to take care of them. So that's a great amenity.
But I think like with all these amenities, it's really important to kind of think about like what is the objective here? The objective here is to have 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or $50,000 a month coming in passively, right? So we have to build something. We're saying yes to this deal because we can have these amenities that is going to attract the right type of tenant who is likely to be much more passive.
Correct. Agreed. And bring in that revenue from like an electric EV station. That's electronic vehicles. So there's a cost to charge. We get a revenue piece, whether it's a rental of that space to a third party, or we buy or lease the station and we charge it. So those are all revenue opportunities that go to your cap rate. Here's a glance at if you look at the bottom, left to right, that's Londonderry Turnpike. If you come up that 24 foot wide private road, you go to the left and you see those buildings. 1A, B, or whatever you want to call them, but 1, 2, 3, 4 on the immediate left. Those are coming right off the road, and those are all the contractor bays or commercial suites. Then just past those are two more on the left. So you notice there's several entrances because these will be strategic when we release these to certain tenants. So if they're gonna have more traffic, we'll put them on their own entrance at the top. Just trying to, from the property management perspective, to try to be efficient there. And if you can look on the top right, you'll see the first residential unit. If you really zoomed in here, you see the grade differences is about 30 feet. So the commercial up above, which will be screened with landscape, this will be rock, landscape, and then the backs of these units are the sides to the road. So you're not going to see all the vehicles, you're not going to see all the equipment and things happening up there on the commercial suites from the residential. So residential, the bottom left, you'll see that 3 lines. That's the private road with that circle. That's just an island in the parking lot. And you'll come around, so you see 1, 2, 3 large parking areas. For 3 24-unit buildings. That is a tremendous amount of parking. So that one we intentionally put on that bottom right. It's a little further away from all the buildings. That would be the overflow parking. That's going to be used as needed. The assigned units will be parked close to the units. If you look at the top, you'll see the pergola with the structure there, the propane grill, and the fire pit all up here, cornhole over here, and a general seating area down here. So those are places that I would want to live. You want to live. It's a comfortable environment, a comfortable campus. Here's a look and feel of what the buildings will look like. We actually added a little bit of stone above the entryways since this, but general idea, all the buildings look like this. It's called Residence at Rose Corner because the town has always known that as Rose Corner. So we use that, which the town like. Chester Woods Commercial Suites. is the name of the contractor base. If you look at those, you'll see that there's 3 different types of product on those for siding. That really breaks it up. There's also a tremendous amount of landscape. So landscape provides screening from the road, from the residents, from people driving by, which is always a benefit. Interiors of the commercial base, on the left and right, what you'll see consistent there is we have a 12 by 14 foot overhead door, which fits a box truck or any larger equipment. Then when you come in, and then there's a man door, which is a standard 36-inch wide entry door. You'll go in and you have about 1,500 square feet of usable space on ground level that's in that garage. On the back corner, there is just a half bath with a utility sink on the outside of it. So that utility sink, a lot of these people, they're gonna have to clean the floor. They're gonna have to have some type of there's a commercial use. So having a commercial sink with a grinder really helps. You'll see the top of that. We have, it looked like it's a mezzanine for open kind of meeting area up there right now. Some people will use it to store insulation or we can close it off and it can be an office. So, but that space from a revenue perspective, you have 1,500 square feet of usable ground space, 300 square feet of commercial suite space above. So that's 1,800 square feet of rentable space. So you're adding the mezzanine, that's 300 square feet of rentable space. And in Hooksett, times X per square foot, that 300 square feet is paid for very quickly. So construction, $27 million budget. The actual, once the shovel hits the ground to completion, I said 2 years, but once the actual physical construction is just under that. Doherty and Keene is a construction management company out of Boston. We've used them on several projects. They have pretty strong resources in the community, and they've proven to us already to be successful several times. And what I like about them is they do large commercial, when I say commercial, they do large residential multi-unit. That's what they do.
Can you talk just really quickly? Let's just say that we had to do three families and renovate them. The difference between how involved you have to be and the difficulty versus hiring a company like that.
So answering that quickly would be three families.
To get 9 units.
To get 9 units all at the same time would take me probably about 3 months to renovate those, maybe 4 months to renovate those each, right? Do them all at the same time, we're done in 3 months. I would have to be there 2 to 3 days a week, and I would have to make sure crews are there and FaceTiming on them. Calvin would also be there regularly doing his part. So on using a larger, because those contractors, that's a pickup contractor. So a pickup truck contractor, hardworking people, great fit, great for that product. You have to manage them differently. You have to manage the cash flow a little bit differently. You have to manage the product a little bit differently. With a GC that has a bond that understands they're getting paid 30, 60, 90 days out, and they're okay with that. They're not asking you for money on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so they can put gas in the truck. It's a different approach. So on the larger GCs, they have a budget. They own their budget. It's in their best interest to come under budget. If you have a contractor for a 3-family renovation, I make them own their budget too, but I have to help them to understand that they really need to own that budget and can't release the money until they have absolutely completed the task or they run out of that money by Monday. They give it to them on Friday. Different types of contractors. So with these guys, I did a site walk on a property, not this one, did a site walk on a project last Friday with this contractor, got there, tons of progress, everything's clean. There's probably 18, 20 people working on the project. He didn't know we were coming. So that's the type of contractor. That's the difference is we get weekly reports. We know what's happening. We still do site visits because you have to inspect what you expect. But the difference is just, if I did that to the single family, if I left the single family alone for a month there, I don't know what it would look like. I do know, nothing would happen. So wood frame on the residential, steel frame on the commercial. Reason is fire ratings and also their just the load they carry. And you're looking for a free spanning. You don't want posts everywhere in the commercial. And it's actually less expensive on the commercial side because of commercial codes to do the seal. Market summary, we talked a little about this already, but we're only about, depends how you look at it, 5 to 8 minutes from Manchester. So you're in a pretty central location here to Concord, Manchester, right off of 2 highways. We are extremely confident about the occupancy rate of the commercial and the residential. We have a few softwares we use and consultants we use, but double checking our math, just like you did in 6th grade, right? You double check that, you feel good about it, pass that test. Well, the softwares tell us and the consultants tell us these are going to be occupied very quickly. There's a high demand for the commercial suites and residential. We did not factor in the University of Southern New Hampshire University, sorry. SNU, they call it. So SNU is right around the corner. We didn't factor that in at all into a pro forma of faculty, employees there, or even students. We didn't factor that in at all. So that is like a pop on the other side. That's a good safety. Population of the town is about 15,000. That doesn't include the students. Growth rate 3%. So growth rate's important. A lot of areas are now flat or even declining in the Northeast. We're growing in Hooksett, New Hampshire. Press rewind 20 years. I would go on to bet Hooksett wasn't growing. Low crime, 9 miles north of Manchester, 11 south of Concord, 35 miles to Boston, like Tom said. Commutable. 35 miles to Boston, like probably closer than I live to Boston, and I'm there every day, every other day. Large demand for multi-unit housing. Cap rate, 5.5%. So 5.5% cap was what you would do on a CVS 5 years ago. CVS like the CVS and Walgreens and those safe commercial investments. You couldn't find 5.5. Like 5.5 is holy cow, right? 5.5 on residential now, a large multi-unit, because they're hard to do, they're hard to find, they're hard to build, and you have 72 residents in there. If one leaves, it doesn't really change your cash flow that much. So they're a lot safer. Mean income is 81,000. So it's people that can afford to pay the rent. That's what we look at when we pull that data from a diverse group. Unemployment's low. Healthcare, jobs, manufacturing, government, retail, a large variety, and with a very low unemployment rate. And that you're looking at 1 3-5 mile radius. Forget about if someone wants to drive to Boston or in the commuting there. That's not in our data. We're looking at 1 through 5 miles. Crime rate's low. Projected plan land about $2.5 million. Construction 27. Architectural engine. This is something that people don't realize. Architecturals, engineering, every consultant that you can think of is required by the city. You think you have your civil person, and then your civil engineer, then your environmental. Well, then you need an environmental specialist, and then you need the engineer, like for everything. It's crazy, but basically you have your architect, your civil engineer, your structural engineer, your environmental engineer, and your attorney are the primary costs here. But that's $1.1 million now so far. That's $1.1 million is where we'll land there. Holding costs about $2.5 million for the project. That has to go out pocket with no revenue coming in. So it puts you about $33.5 million with $7 million down. Bank financing at 27.5. That's 33. That's how we get to the 33 million. Is about $7 million down and 26 in institutional lending.
Back over.
Sure. Good thing Tom did the presentation, not me. Right?
So obviously, like, I am sure that as Jim was kind of going through that stuff, that could have sparked a lot of questions. And for the purposes of kind of keeping us on time and really just to make sure that you guys get what you need out of it, I just want to recap some high-level things there. First thing to think about is just that apartments are safer, more profitable, and more passive way to invest in real estate in general. If you're in the inner circle, I would not join the inner circle thinking that you're gonna, partner on an apartment deal with us, but it is possible, right? We are looking for more deals. We're looking to add 1 to 2 more of these per year. And where they come from, we don't know. Every deal that we've done so far has actually been referred to us. So, the next deal could definitely be referred to us, and it could be from somebody, sitting in this room. And that would be a pretty big shortcut to achieving, some passive income for yourself. Again, I wouldn't run out, join the inner circle just for that benefit, but it is a potential benefit. Investing in one of these deals is really simple. It is one of the ways to join the inner circle. When you're investing with us, you're investing in a deal, either this deal or a deal like this. Jim put, the rates of return that we have. I would kind of look at it like this. Who this might make sense for is pretty simple. Number one, like if you have an IRA, it's definitely worth a conversation. You can say kind of whatever you want about the stock market. I think everybody has different opinions on it. But in my opinion, I would definitely advocate having some IRA money in real estate in addition to having it in the stock market or the bond market. So if you have an IRA, this is like definitely a discussion that's typically worth having, even if you're not interested in anything else related to the inner circle. Then the other part for people that it makes sense for is if you have money that's sitting around or sitting in the stock market or sitting in a bank account that you maybe want to invest more actively in real estate, but you don't know that now is really the best time to do it. The next presentation, I'm going to talk about the landscape for small multifamily. I would say at least half of the people that invest with us and invest passively with us want to own small multifamily, but they know that now isn't the best time to do it. And they're kind of using our investments to park their money, whether it's for a year or 2 years or 3 years until the market changes, right? Because for most people, it's not going to make sense to run out and buy a 3-family building that's negative $500 a month of cash flow with a lot of risk to it. So that's another kind of area that a lot of people invest with us. Again, everybody here has this sheet. If you're thinking about joining the inner circle, whether it's by investing in a passive deal like this, whether it's by joining the brokerage or paying the flat $15,000 fee, if you can just fill that out, make sure it gets to Christina or Nicole that are in the back, we would appreciate it. There's a lot that goes into analyzing these, apartment deals. And again, they require a lot more analysis than the typical fix and flip. Like Calvin got a fix and flip an appointment, same day we signed the deal, and now we're going to buy the deal. And it's just kind of as simple as that. If you do refer us over an apartment building that's off market that we can look at, just understand that we're probably saying no to more of them than we're saying yes. But on the flip side, if you refer us a flip deal that's profitable, we're probably saying yes to pretty much every deal that you put across our table. So there is lunch. What's the best way for people to get it? Like, can we bring it in? What's the best way to do it, Chuck?
Yeah, they're bag lunches, so you can just quickly grab them and bring them back in.
Okay, so what do you guys want to do? Raise your hand really quick. Do you guys want to just kind of run out and grab them, or do you guys want 10 minutes right now? And I'm only asking that question because I want to kind of keep people on time if they want to be exactly on time. If we give you guys 10 minutes, this might go to like 2:15 or something like that. Who wants 10 minutes? All right, who wants to just grab and come back? All right, grab and come back. We'll be back. We will go live in like 3 minutes.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
What is the difference between fix and flip versus distressed homes?
Well, fixing and flipping is when you buy it and then you renovating and then putting it back onto the market. A distressed home would just be like somebody that has a problem. Maybe it's like they're facing a foreclosure or their house needs work, and it's just, you know, that type of property type of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
All right, cool.
thank you.
What's happening, man?
What's going on?
Anthony, we chatted a little bit on Facebook voice chat.
Nice. Yeah. Polo
Um,
banker.
yeah.
I remember the whole story. Yeah.
Just not wanting to
Were
say
you
thank you.
were you
Appreciate the
were you
time.
expecting 20 minutes of voice notes?
No, I wasn't. I was like, is this Tom? To be honest with you, I was like, is he gonna waste his time
You
talking
can,
to
you
me?
can hear the
But,
voice. Yeah.
no, this is cool. Thanks for putting this together. I'm
Yeah.
glad I made the time to come. This is
Good.
awesome, man.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, like I said in the thing, it's like, to me, it's like just simple.
Yeah.
Just so simple. But I know it's not that simple in reality. But yeah. Where do you live?
It's funny. I heard Jim say Gloucester. I'm actually moving. I'm from Gloucester. Moving back. I live in Burlington. So, so obviously, but
Yeah. You guys never leave, right?
I left,
That's what
but
happened
I'm
to him.
going back.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
happens. Yep.
You did the same thing.
Yeah. So it sucked me back in. But we're
Yes.
a couple different things happening. Wife's having a baby first. Thank you. So mom's back home in Gloucester getting help, and we're building a new house. Just my brother and I, duplex, diving right in. Never built a house before. Best experience I've ever had. Headaches and everything, but I love it. So I'm going to be selling that August, September, and then just using that capital to keep going. Just trying to get more into doing wholesale and all that stuff. Is what I'm struggling with. Spending money, but things are jumping around too much. But we can chat another time. I know you got a lot going on today. But,
Yeah, I don't. Like I said, I don't
Yeah.
really think you're struggling as much as you think you are. It's just those tweaks.
Yeah.
Like it's not like if you told me I got 0, I got no deals, then I'm thinking, well, the fix is hard. But you know what you're telling me is like I just think it's a margin.
Yeah.
You know, it's a margin thing. You know, if you wholesale the deal and the margin was 75,
Yeah.
like if you flipped it, I don't even know what that profit was.
Yeah, that was so. I brought in, they certainly helped me out. I
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have gotten
Yep.
75,000. To be honest with you,
No, I know.
Getting what I walked away with at 23 was honestly I was happy.
Well, that's all wholesaling. It's like, you know, like sometimes you just take what you can get,
Yep.
and that's the best option.
Yeah.
And it's not a negative that we work with. It's just like, you know, when you do that type of stuff, you're gonna do partner with us.
Yeah.
You're not gonna always partner with us.
Yeah.
You're gonna stop it. But so it's the same type of deal.
To your point, it's like it makes me think like there's only so much you can do on my own, or I
Correct.
want to do on my own.
It depends on what you want to do. So like for me, I have 2 other partners. Right? I find the deals.
Yeah.
They do the construction.
Yep.
And I give up my portion, right, to have a partner.
Yeah.
And for me, I get to do what I want. Which is fine. So like it's not so simple. It's like what do you want to do? What are you good at? And you may end up like even
Yeah.
you may get something you don't like. Like some stuff you may not like, we like it. Or we'll do it, you know. So
Let's I'll I know you gotta jump, but I'll put on the calendar and we'll. I think you have like a calendar invite
yeah,
for an hour. Does that work?
there's a link, yeah.
Okay. Cool. Awesome.
Or
Thank you.
message me on Facebook.
Yeah.
I gotta go find lunch. Go find something after today.
Where are you? I don't know your yeah. All right, guys, we're back. We got lunch. I know we're kind of like short on time, so we're just gonna kind of make do. And you know, I do want to mention just to everybody that you know, and I mentioned this to you guys on text. You know, if you guys have to run, it's okay. There's no problem. You know, at whatever time it is, whether it's now or 2 or if we go a couple minutes over 2 and you have a hard cutoff at 2, you know, do whatever you guys, you know, kind of need to do to take care of everything. But we're going to try to cut this at 2 or as close to 2 as we can. And we're going to continue on. So we talked about fix and flipping, analyzing fixing and flipping, the art of it. We talked about apartment deals, why we like them. You know, we didn't talk necessarily about the apartment deals we don't like. So I do want to just tell kind of like one quick, you know, story about that. We had a similar deal to this come up in a city in Massachusetts right outside of Boston. And just 2 really quick reasons why we passed on the deal. We actually lost a deposit on the deal because we had that deal under contract, and then we had the Hookset deal come up, and we only wanted to do one at a time, and we passed on the other deal. I was in Somerville, Massachusetts, and you know, most people, I think, when they think about like the 2 towns, like Somerville versus Hookset, I think most people like instinctually would think that Somerville would be better or more of a no-brainer. But one thing that Jim didn't talk about with the construction is like, how easy does a town make it to get the building built? And that's hugely important. And the same thing with the tenant landlord laws. You know, both areas are going to rent fast. Maybe Somerville rents like a couple hours faster. I mean, that's how fast stuff rents around here. But if I had to pick, like, would I rather rent an apartment in Somerville or put it out there versus Hookset? They're going to be close, but Somerville is going to get a slight edge. But then when you think about the tenant landlord laws, then that gets completely overridden in terms of Hookset. And the same thing with the construction. You know, if there's a big difference between town versus town, and this is just stuff we've learned from doing stuff in a variety of towns, you know, some towns can make it a lot harder for you to get stuff done. But I do want to switch gears to small multifamily. Who here came and is most interested in small multifamily? Who here came and was most interested in flipping? And who here came and was most interested in apartments? All right, so pretty much everybody who raised their hand raised it all 3 times. And then everybody else wasn't going to raise their hand anyway. So that was a futile attempt at trying to analyze the room there. But in all seriousness, it sounds like, you know, people came to see all 3, or we have a variety of different people in the room. So that's good. I think small multifamily is kind of like what most people think about. It's what I thought about when I first started investing, because I think it's like the most achievable way to become a multimillionaire. And this survey will probably prove it. Who here knows somebody who got rich through owning small multifamily real estate? It's crazy. Like, no other industry in the world could you say that about. Like, if we were in a room full of medical professions or somebody in biochemistry or something, most people wouldn't know a bunch of people who got rich through that industry. But with small multifamily real estate, it's almost like the average Joe's way to become a multimillionaire, where you don't need like a high level of education or you don't need any special skill. I mean, at the end of the day, if you just bought 3 multifamilies in Boston 15 years ago, you would be a millionaire today. And it's really no more complicated than that. My grandfather came here from Italy, and when he came here, he worked for minimum wage, and he started accumulating multifamilies in Somerville, in Malden, in Revere, and he actually would have been very rich, except that he was a control freak. And the second that he realized he couldn't manage the properties himself, he sold them. He actually sold them in the 80s. He sold them probably about 10 to 15 years too soon. He owned properties like a 9-family on Tremont Street in Somerville. I could give you the addresses, but that's really neither here nor there, because as I'm saying that, growing up, he still had way more money than anybody else I personally knew. Like, my parents had no money, but my grandfather wasn't working by the time he was in his late 50s because he had these properties. And he only He came here, he only graduated the second grade in Italy. He didn't speak very good English, but yet he had probably 30 to 40 units in and around the greater Boston area. And again, if he held on to those properties, I'm going to guess his net worth would probably be 10 to 20 million dollars today. And again, that's just from somebody who, was a butcher, who didn't do anything, crazy. And everybody who raised their hand in this room probably has like a similar story, where it wasn't this, high level person. It was just somebody, an average Joe who bought multifamily, which is really when I'm saying deal or no deal and thinking about small multifamily. When it's the right time, it's one of the biggest no-brainer assets that you can purchase. The problem is at the wrong time, it can actually be one of the biggest problematic mistakes that you make. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why I don't love it today, why I do love it overall, but basically not today. I'm going to talk about like who it does make sense for today, because one thing I don't love about being in a room or on a podcast or on Facebook and putting out any sort of message is that no matter what I say, even if it applies to 95% of people, for 5% of people, the advice is going to be wrong. So I am going to talk about like the 5% today where maybe you should buy a small multifamily piece of real estate. We're going to talk about how we would analyze a small multifamily real estate regardless of whether I like it or not. And then we're going to talk about the stuff I would recommend staying away from if you're going to do this. Okay, so why don't I love it today? High prices, mainly occupied, mainly older, and tough to scale unless you're buying it at a discount. So do you guys remember this property I talked about, 10 Adams Street in Lynn, Mass? Okay, you guys can see the cool agent right here. This is when I was with Keller Williams. And that was, we put the property under contract on February 19th, 2013. On the MLS, this was not a hard deal to get under contract. Look at that. 3-family in Lynn. Talk about pop prices. Listed for $170. We got it for under asking. Think about that. I wasn't even willing to pay full market value. Okay, paid $155,600, right? I wasn't even willing to pay $156. $155,600 on this property. Now, this property was in okay condition. It wasn't in good condition, for sure. It was like close to being rent ready. It needed a couple bucks, but it wasn't that bad. So when I say that I don't love multifamily today, small multifamily today, this is the reason why, right? A lot of people don't think about this perspective here. But what do you guys think rents were back in 2013 for these 2-bedroom units? Somebody said 1,400. What else? 1,000, 1,200. I think they were about 1,200, right? Let's just call it 1,000 to be conservative. They were definitely 1,000 at least back then. Okay. So how many rents did it take to cover this mortgage? At a 3 to 3.5% rate. How many do you think it took? One rent. One rent covered your whole mortgage. That meant I could have 2 units vacant. I could have two people not paying me. Would you guys feel like safe if you own an asset like that? Okay. Now let's talk about what that looks like today. Average 3-family in that same 01902 zip code. Average sales price is $720,000. That's about 5 times the price. Okay, so in order for it to be about the same, we would need about 5 times the rents. Our rents for 2 bedrooms in Lynn, $5,000 a month. Not even close, right? I mean, they're not even relatively remotely close. Now, one other caveat here too. Rates back then were 3.5% to 4%. What are they today? So you actually need more than $5,000 a month for this to be apples to apples equal to buying this property in 2013, 2014. Okay? So we know rents haven't gone up 5 times, rates are higher now, and you used to be able to rent out one unit, pay for the whole building. Maybe one person wasn't paying you, and then one other tenant was the profit, right? Not a bad deal, right? The other reason I don't love these, I talked about the deferred maintenance and why we like apartment buildings. These all have deferred maintenance. What I see most people doing now that buy small multifamily today is they run a P&L and it shows them making $500 a month of profit every month. And then when they put in a repair item, they kind of just close their eyes and pretend like there aren't going to be any repairs and just kind of hope for the best. Now, goes without saying that that can be problematic, right? So you want to plan for the worst and hope for the best, not basically, plan for the best. And then if the worst happens, you're totally screwed. The thing about owning these small multifamily real estate, for them to pay off, right? How long do we need to own them for? Like, do we need to own them for a while for them to be worthwhile? Or is it like a 1 or a 2, 3 year thing and we're good? The value in owning these is holding them over the long haul. That's where you get the mortgage pay down. That's where you get the appreciation. That's where you get the rent appreciation. You need to buy and hold. If you buy a property on very thin margins where if anything goes wrong, you have to sell it, you are not holding that property. You are selling it. You're basically flipping it. Most people who buy small multifamily today, and even in the past 2 or 3 years, don't even know that they're basically flipping houses. And a lot of people in the past few years have gotten bailed out. Like they buy a property, realize it doesn't cash flow as much, they sell it, somebody else buys it, does the same thing. But at some point, the greater fool theory kind of like runs out. We probably at that point right now, where the person who bought it last year or the year before, when they go to sell it, there may not be a buyer that's willing to pay what they paid for it. Occupied properties, we talked about this. This is very problematic, extremely problematic, often overlooked. That 3-family on 10 Adams was completely vacant. We got to put in the tenants that we wanted. Your best case scenario for taking over a property with tenants is basically getting good tenants that are paying under fair market value. Like there is almost no property that you'll ever take over where you have great tenants that are paying fair market value. Automatically, by getting a vacant unit, you're getting fair market value for rents. Rents have gone up a lot in the past 2, 3, 4 years. They'll probably continue to go up for a lot of dynamics that are in our market. You want, in an ideal world, a vacant unit is worth a lot more than an occupied unit. Now, we covered a lot in the past 2.5 hours. If you forgot everything so far that we talked about, this is the most important thing to understand. Literally the most important thing. So if you're kind of half paying attention, I'm not calling you out. It's cool. I'm not that exciting. I am saying that if you came though to get one piece of information, this would be it. We talked about what's the purpose of doing this thing. The purpose of doing this thing is to have $10, $15, $20, $25,000 a month coming in passively. Who wants that? Okay? So when we think about that, and we think about buying a small multifamily asset, when do we want it by? Do we want it in like 20 plus years or like as soon as we can? As soon as we can, right? That's not, we all know that's not a year, that's not 2 years, but we don't want it to take 30 years. In order to do that, we need to accumulate a lot of these. So if on average, a small multifamily cash flows $500 per unit, each multifamily, each 3-family is $1,500 a month. So rough math, if you want $15,000 a month of passive income, you need 10 of these. So when most people are analyzing these today, we all understand how to get our first one, right? We go, oh, I'll do an FHA loan, I'll save up a down payment. And then there's usually no thought process that I need 9 more. And how do I get those 9 more? Okay? And the way to get those 9 more is to follow the BRRRR strategy. You buy a property at a little bit of a discount, you renovate it a little bit, you go back to the bank a year later, you pull your money back out, and then you buy another one. Okay, I'm going to stop there because, again, if you guys learn nothing else, does everybody understand that concept? Does anybody not? Because I will spend the next 30 minutes going over that again. Because if you don't understand that, like, you're dead in the water. Okay? You need 10 of these. You need 10 3-families. Unless you've got like $3 million in the bank today, you need to BRRRR. Okay? What's the problem with BRRRRing today? What was that? The rate's high, I guess, but like, what are we trying to do with when we're BRRRring? We're trying to get the money back out. We need to keep buying. So we need to refi and get the money back out. Now, I probably shouldn't be doing this right now because I did not ask her for permission. Do you guys know Alexa Daly? Anybody know her? She's in the inner circle. She's a friend of mine, and she's an agent at our brokerage. She did post this publicly, so I'm going to read it verbatim because this is extremely important. She wrote, "This one did not go as planned. Long post, but hopefully someone can learn from my mistake. Everyone is always talking about their wings. Let's normalize our mistakes, losses, failures, so we can all learn from each other. Here we go. I bought this 4-family building," and she has a picture, "for $460,000 in November of 2022. I'm going to stop there. She obviously had to come up with a down payment for that property, right? She probably had to come up with $100,000 for that thing. That's a lot of money for anybody, right? I bought that in November 2022. My projections thought it would be valued at $780. So she bought it for $460. Her projections were $780 after renovation, based on comps. Now, I'm not an appraiser, but I do have knowledge, and I thought it would become in between $730 and $780. I was wrong. So I chased the renovations, thinking my numbers would come in on target. I did all new plumbing, electrical, AC, new windows, kitchens, baths, and windows, etc. So now I'm in this thing for $590, which includes renovations plus interest from hard money. Appraisal came in at $685. WTF? What the? This means I had to come closing with $80,000. The bank would not do a rate and terms finance at 80% LTV. I planned on owning this for 0 or minimal out of pocket. I disputed the appraisal. The biggest takeaway that I can get, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So yes, it's still a good deal. I just didn't want to leave $80K in this deal because $80K could have bought another deal, then another, then another. Okay? So she gets it. She gets what the purpose, and that failed. Why did it fail? Our prices going up like they were. Our banks being more or less conservative now. They're being more conservative, right? So the biggest obstacle she has, she thought, I'm going to use $80K, putting into the deal, I'm going to get the money back, and then I'm going to buy something else. And now that $80K is trapped in that deal. So why that is problematic is because we all raised our hands saying we don't want to get to the $15,000 a month of passive income in 30 years from now. Now she's got $80K trapped. Very problematic because now she has to get another $80K somehow, right? $80K doesn't come from thin air, okay? So this is the number one reason I don't like small multifamily right now, because I believe that most properties that are going to be bought are not going to be able to be BRRRRed out in a year. So if it takes her 5 years to get the money back out, that literally 5 times the amount of time it's going to take her to get to the $15,000 a month. Does that make sense? That's why a lot of people are parking money with us right now. Okay? All right, so with all that negativity, I do want to talk to the 5% of the people who this does make sense for. Makes sense for some people, no doubt. The first person who it makes sense for is somebody who's much smarter than me. And instead of buying an expensive single family, they buy a multifamily to live in. So if you have 2 choices, one, buy an obnoxiously large single family that does not help you at all financially, Or option two, buy an overpriced multifamily where you're getting 2 rents coming in. If you have to buy something right now, there is no doubt that buying a multifamily is going to be better financially than buying a single family. Okay? I think everybody gets that, right? So if you're between those two options and you're like, I have to buy a property in the next 6 months, you are definitely better off buying a small multifamily, hands down. Somebody who's not trying to accumulate a bunch and doesn't need to burr fast. I know not too many people are gonna like raise their hand because they might feel embarrassed to admit this, but for some people, they're not in a rush to get to like a certain net worth, and they don't care about going slow. Like if you have 20 years to get $10,000 to $15,000 a month in passive income, you can just buy an asset, wait for it to go up in value, take the money out, do it again, and that's going to be very slow, painfully slow for a lot of people, but acceptable for some people. There's nothing wrong with going slow as long as you're aware you're going slow and you're okay with it. What you don't want to do is, be delusional about it and say, hey, I'm going to buy a small multifamily today. I'm going to burn it out a year from now when the odds of that are very low, and then be disappointed when that can't happen, right? And the crazy thing about the Alexa post is she actually bought that property right, but she didn't get the appreciation that this market is usually, accustomed to yielding. So the other person who it might make sense for, 3 and 4 are kind of similar, but basically if you have a ton of money, and I'm talking like 5 million plus liquid, and you just want to invest and you're not really concerned about the ebbs and flows of the market, you kind of just want a dollar cost average into owning small multifamily for some reason, maybe it makes sense to buy right now. So I do want to talk a little bit about, how we would look at these. Let's just say that I did think it was a great time to buy them. How would we analyze them? I want to talk about another rule specific to small multifamily called the 100 times rule. It's kind of the 70% of ARV minus repairs for small multifamily. Has anybody heard of the 100 times rule? Doesn't me. Okay, good. I didn't make it up. I didn't make that one up. 100 times rule, really easy. The purpose of the 100 times rule is in 5 seconds to determine whether a property might even cash flow. So this is how you do the 100 times rule. You take the total monthly rents, like say they're $1,000 a month and you have 3 units, so you have $3,000 a month. You multiply it by 100 to get to $300,000. And that's basically what you need to pay for a building in order for it to cash flow. Just like the 70% minus repairs, there's definitely some caveats in there. Where the 100 times rule is really useful, a lot of times when people first start out looking into owning small multifamily real estate, they go, oh, I'll just buy a 2-family in Arlington or Watertown and I'll cash flow there. That'll be like awesome. And you go, okay, well, what's it cost? Well, $1.2 million. Okay, so is there $12,000 a month in rent coming in? No, there's $6,000. Okay, so you're going to be insanely negative cash flow, right? So that's a shorthand way of even determining like whether a market can cash flow. So I guess, what would a 2-bedroom in Lynn rent out for today? Average. 2,400. Who thinks it's higher? Who thinks it's lower? What do you guys think it is? 22? 2-bed. So 2-bed, 2,200 times 3, $6,600, which means you have to have a rent-ready multifamily to have any cash flow at about $660,000. Kind of like rough math. Again, do not buy a house based on this rule. It's very rough. It's just to get an idea. And Lynn, just as an example, like you guys know, if you live in this market, like that's an area where you're always going to get like the highest cash flow per dollar, per sale price. Now, if you take it into other markets, you're going to see the numbers get a lot worse. So we also have a spreadsheet for this. that Inner Circle members get access to. If you're in the Inner Circle and you want our spreadsheet to plug in the numbers, we can give that to you. It's the same exact thing when we showed you guys the flips, where it factors in the monthly profit. So we use both numbers. All right, so once you have the spreadsheet and you have the 100 times type of thing, these are the other things that I would like look underneath the surface. Because like the same thing with the fix and flip, it's not just about what the paper says, right? What the Excel spreadsheet says. It's about all these other variables, right? We talked about occupied tenants, right? That is a huge negative. You have got to adjust your cash flow in the beginning for occupied tenants. Deferred maintenance, same exact thing. You really need to go through with a fine-tooth comb on what repairs the property needs, amortize that out to figure out what your true cash flow is. Another point that I want to make that we made a mistake on is don't chase cash flow. So what happened to us is that we started buying properties like that 3-family in Lynn, 10 Adams Street, and it looked really good on paper. As time went on, the cap rates compressed, and we actually had to go further and further away from Boston in order for properties to cash flow. So we found in like 2016 and 2017 that areas close to us like Lynn weren't cash flowing. So we started going to like Manchester, New Hampshire, Fall River, Worcester, and then even further than that. I would highly suggest not chasing cash flow. Who would know why? Why do you think that's bad to do kind of? Yeah.
Because the rents might not like equate to whatever the house is worth or vice versa. Like,
No, so if you're chasing cash flow, you're looking at the numbers and you're saying like, I'm chasing wherever the market is, the cash flows. So why might that be a bad thing?
Trying to time it. It's like timing stock purchases. You can never really guess where.
It's not timing. So again, what are we trying to achieve? We have to go back to the North Star of like, why the hell are we in this room today? We don't want to own assets where people are shooting each other in the halls. Like, does anybody want that? Like, it's not what, when you read the book, there was nowhere in the book that said like, invest in real estate, it'll be awesome. There'll be people shooting each other in the halls. But that's what you get when you chase cash flow. I see this a lot, and this is another thing I would really caution against. I see people being like, hey, Greater Boston doesn't work, but like, I think I'm gonna buy a deal in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's chasing cash flow. And there's a reason why Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania and Detroit cash flow. There's a reason. There's problems associated with that cash flow. When we analyze deal versus no deal, some things to talk about, like number of units. In general, the more units, the better. In general. In general, 2 families are very hard to cash flow on. 3 families, right area, right time, you can cash flow. 4 families become a lot easier. 6 families become even easier than that. Just a general statement that's not going to apply all the time, but just in general. Another thing to just be aware of, and this is something that like we made a mistake on, and we fixed our process after this. Be careful about what you see a property listed for on public record and on the MLS to the number of units. So we had a 2-family in Boston. A 3-family in Boston. The person told us it was a 3-family. It looked like a 3-family. There were 3 bedrooms, 3 baths. There was 3 everything. We go to rent it out. It's legally a 2-family. So you have to make sure that you have occupancy. It's a big deal. Like if your numbers only worked as a 3-family and all of a sudden you own a 2, that's a very big problem, right? You can verify this before you buy properties. There's companies that do this for you. Every multifamily that you're going to buy, I would verify occupancy. It's a huge deal. And buying in similar vicinities. This goes along with chasing cash flow. Again, why are we here? We want an easier, better life. So we want to have our assets somewhere in the same vicinity of each other. When they're spread all over the world, which we had at some point, it creates a lot of problems. Okay. So I'm going to stop here because, again, we've covered so much today. And I want to ask you guys what questions that you have on anything we covered. Fix and flips, apartment investing, inner circle, small multifamily, economic stuff. Like, I don't really care what it is. I want to make sure right now that as you guys are sitting here, that you guys all leave feeling like, hey, I got like the value that I wanted before I came today. So if there are questions that didn't get asked, if there was topics that you thought were going to be brought up, this would be the opportunity to do it. Yes, Gloria.
We bring you a deal and you take it and then you flip it and you're not a Cameron agent, can I list it or you have to give it to one of your agents?
So we don't give it to one of our agents. We have somebody that's full-time staff that does that for us. So when we partner with people, it's a true 50-50 deal. And we make that 50-50 deal more profitable for both of us by somebody that's on payroll doing the listing. That would make it more like a 45-55 split in your favor. So it's a true partnership. We're going to, every cost that we can crunch down, we're going to give to you. And we're going to make it so that it's exactly a 50-50 split.
So that's just built in.
It's built in. Yep. Yeah.
You talked about Kelvin, and he did send out the mailer without talking to you.
Yes.
Right now, based on the current situation of the market, what marketing strategy or structure would sort of work or focus on, I guess? The mailers, compared to call or SMS or whatever.
So I would have to know like what your objective is. So when somebody joins the inner circle, I ask them to go through our 5-step process, which the 5 steps are really simple, but they're hard to do because it takes time. A lot of people don't do them, which is a mistake. So these are the 5 steps. And we have worksheets for all these. Where are you at today? How much money do you have? How many hours do you have? What do you do for work? Where do you want to be 5 to 10 years from now? With a monthly number associated with that. Like, I hate vision boards. They're the dumbest thing ever. People put up pictures, random pictures, and then they make a collage and they put it up and they never look at it again. There's no numbers tied to it. So week 2 for us is you actually put together, okay, this is the monthly income I need to live the life that I want. This is how much my college costs are going to be. This is how much my daycare expenses are going to be. X it out so that you can be passive. Week 3 is what investing vehicle are you going to choose? Is it fix and flip, buy and hold? You know, I could go down the list, short-term rentals. Step number 4, what are the 3 to 6 priorities you need to focus on this quarter? And then week 5, you need a scorecard. So when you say what's the best marketing strategy, I'm going to have to ask you all those other questions. So I don't know. Like, what are you trying to achieve? What type of properties are you looking to buy? Every marketing strategy works and achieves a certain outcome. Do you have time? Do you have money? What are you trying to buy? Do you know exactly what you're trying to buy?
Yeah, so I think I'm Cameron agent, and I think I have a W-2 job, and at that time you asked an important question, like, what do you want to spend more? Do you want to spend money or time?
Yeah, you said money.
I said money.
Yeah.
So it's just that what I have done, like, so what we did similar, what we talked about, we sent the mailers out, and like, you know, now we're switching to cold calling because the mailers are a lot more expensive.
Yep.
The buying in the gold, and I did the 5-step thing too, like not the journal in a circle, but I listened to your podcast and I did it on my own.
Yeah.
So basically what we were focused on is the South Norfolk County mainly. And they're only focused on single family, 1950 and newer. Either wholesale or fix and flip. So, and we did the mailers last year and wasn't successful, or probably we're not as aggressive, I guess.
Yes.
We're able to close the deal. Now this year is kind of like after spending that kind of money, it's kind of motivation kind of gone down.
Yes.
Maybe we want to do it, but now we want to spend it in a way, but strategically.
Yep.
That money spent, but it's well spent.
Yes. Yeah, so this goes into like a lot more that could be a whole topic. I will answer the question, but like, so you're looking for fix and flip deals. You picked an area, you picked a location, and if you're gonna spend money, then you just have to figure out like, where are you gonna spend it? And I still think mailers are the right thing. And based on what you had told me, like, it's not as simple. And this is why, like this stuff here, like, there's a reason this is valuable. There's a reason why you really, I'd be surprised if you could convince me that you shouldn't be in the inner circle. And the reason is, like, you did the mailers on your own, like Calvin, right? And I know you didn't even probably know about us or anything like that, right? So Calvin's really the dummy, right? I give you a pass on that, but Calvin, I don't know what's going on. But in all seriousness, though, right? You listen to somebody's podcast, you listen to their training, and it says do mailers. Then you do them, and it doesn't work out. Why doesn't it work out? And the reason why it didn't work out, I could go and break down all the different things, right? What did the mailer look like? What was the call to action? Who picked up the phone? Who, probably most important thing, who went on the appointment? So if you think about it like this, if you're mailing and I'm mailing, and I have one of my guys that goes on 15 appointments a week, and he's right after you or before you, and then you go on the appointment, you've never gone on an appointment before. Like, not to be mean, but we're going to crush you. Like, you're not going to be able to compete with us. Like, we are going to close that person. And it's a simple matter of, like, what do you do full time for work? Okay. Say I go into CVS tomorrow and I just push you out of the way and I start taking people behind the counter. Like, how am I going to do? I do terrible. I do terrible. I'm probably going to kill like 5 people, right? So it's going to be a problem, right? But yet, right? And I say this as a joke, but it's so serious. Like, there's people here who are trying to do this by themselves when they don't have to, right? I would have been a lot better off, instead of pushing you out of the way, they're like, hey, we're going to work the counter together, right? And maybe I could have done some things and learned. So my guess would be that there were things along the way that probably the 2 biggest problems were who went on the appointment, how they approached the appointment, and then how the property was analyzed from an offer perspective. Like, Calvin went out and he'll tell you, like, what did you offer on that house? Okay. And was it too low or too high? Why? Why did you offer too low?
Because I was doing the, like, as is, he didn't have to touch anything. So I was taking that into account. But with that being removed,
Yeah. So it's just like there's small tweaks. And like, it's one thing, you don't want to waste time or money, but I think if you're going to spend money, it's like you really don't want to waste the money. Like, you can kind of live with like wasting a little bit of time, but if you're spending a few $1,000s a month. So then, what I would do is, like, give me your plan, your new plan, and then we can talk about your new plan and make a better alternative to that plan, And there's nothing like, I'll be the first person to tell you, like, there's no guarantees to any of this stuff. Having said that, like, you want to put yourself in the best possible position to get a deal done. And, that's why we offer this. That's why it's a benefit. I'm glad you're in the inner circle. And the next time you get a deal, like with Calvin, it's like, okay, he was going to lose it on his own, and we helped to get it back. And now we're going to do a deal together, And you don't have to do deals with us if you're in the inner circle. We can still help you, at least. If you're not going to partner with us, let us coach you through what that appointment would even look like. And if we coach you through what the appointment's going to look like, you don't have to partner with us. But at least you got that coaching. Yes.
Could you elaborate more on exactly what the investing in the apartments with you looks like?
Yeah. So I will explain it as simply as I can, because I know not everybody's super interested in that. The best way to describe it is, you have money, you have a chunk of money, IRA, money sitting in the bank. You give that money to us, and we provide you with a monthly return. You get paid monthly, you get direct deposited your money the first week of the month. It's meant to be absolutely 100% passive. My best friend, he worked for a biotech company. He got a bunch of stock options. He gave us a bunch of the money after he cashed out his stock options. He doesn't work anymore. That's like what it's supposed to be for. It doesn't have to be that much money, like he got a bunch of money, but it can be a small increment or it can be a little bit bigger. But it's meant to just be like, I'm trading my money. It's really supposed to be for like having a mutual, a money market, but a higher yielding, double, triple what a money market will be.
So what exactly is the percentages and the length of time that it's locked up?
So we have multiple options. So we have options where you're investing directly into the apartments that we just showed you. And again, this is more a conversation like, if you want to have this conversation, you have to at least have $50,000 and have the money locked up for a year. And you have to be okay and accepting like, okay, I'm going to be happy getting at least a 10% rate of return paid out monthly. If all of those like check boxes are checked, then we can talk about all the options. But we do have options for people to invest with us for as little as 1 year. And we have options for people to invest with us for 3 years. And the financial details are better the longer you have the money locked up. But we do have the ability for people that just want to park their money for a year. Like I said, probably half the people that we work with, they're like, I want to put my money into a property, but I don't want to do it now, and I want a 1 year term. So, and so, yeah, so, and to have that conversation again, like, fill this out, make sure that Nicole or Christina kind of like get the front, and then we'll have that conversation. And for some people, after we talk, it doesn't make sense, and for some people, it does. All right, anything else?